Procedural notes. This meeting will be held electronically as per section 19(1) of the town's procedural bylaw, number 6228-19 as amended due to the COVID-19 situation. Council, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as revised? Councillor Kim, Councillor Thompson, any comments or questions? Councillor Gallo?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick one on there's a consideration of items requiring separate discussion. I was hoping we could just get a quick explanation from staff as to why I came straight to I know the reason, but just for the interest of the public. That's 8.1 PDS 21-0 for the heritage permit.
And Councillor, yes. Mr. Clerk, did you want to answer? But I think it's because the bylaws were going to be on here regardless. So this is just an informational piece because the bylaws were going to be here. Mr. Clerk?
Mr. Mayor, I'd actually like Mr. Waters to comment on that.
Okay. Mr. Waters?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, this is regarding the report here, 8.1.
Heritage permit application?
Yes. So this is for 28 Wellington Street West. We received an urgent email from the owner of the property who had was replacing their windows and had found out that through the replacement of the windows, the wood surroundings were rotting. They had significant damage. They were looking to do this very quickly and not wait an extra month, because the proper process would have been to proceed to hack next week and then receive a formal approval from council in May. We didn't want to wait that long to cause more damage to the building. In addition, there are some cedars as well that are causing water damage to the foundation, and we felt it was imperative to bring this forward to council tonight to receive approval so they could get on with the renovations.
Councillor, and I apologize, Councillor, I thought it was in regards to the bylaw. Sorry, this was a different one.
Thank you. I thought it was important to have the public know that, and we can have discussion once it comes up.
No, absolutely. Councillor Humphries, if you got your hand up in regards to this one, I know you want to speak to it, but we're going to discuss this, so you can speak to it at that point.
Okay, no problem. I just wanted to clarify other things, but that's fine. No problem. Thanks.
No problem. Thank you. Any other comments, questions to the approval of the agenda? Call the vote.
Record vote.
Thompson, did you have something there? Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, just jumped the gun.
Pardon?
Oh, I was just quick to approve. I forgot that we do it by not raising.
Yes. Record a vote. Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Record vote for approval of the agenda. Councillor Humphries is absent. Councillor Gallo?
Yes.
Councillor Gardner?
Yes.
Councillor Kim?
Yes.
Mayor Marakis?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
And Councillor Gilliland.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. We have no community presentations. Delegations, we have none. Mr. Clerk, just to confirm, no delegations?
To you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. No delegations.
Thank you. Move to the consent agenda. Would anyone like any of those items pulled? Otherwise, I'll ask for a motion to approve 6.1 to 6.8. Councilor Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like 6.3 and 6.4 pulled separately. I'd like to speak to that.
6.3 and 6.4. Okay. Anything else? Would anyone like 6.8 pulled, considering we're going to be discussing it later on and refer to it?
Yep.
Yep. Counselor, so how about we just take that and just refer it to your motion? How's that? We'll just.
Yes, of
put it all
course. Thank
together.
you. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. Anything else, council? So can you get a motion to approve the items in the consent agenda minus 6.3, 6.4, and 6.8? Moved by Councillor Gilliland, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Record a vote for the items that not pulled from the consent agenda this evening. Councillor Kim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mayor Marakis?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
Councillor Humphries is absent. Councillor Gilliland?
Yes.
Councillor Gardner?
Yes.
And Councillor Gallo.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Council will move to standing committee reports. Would anyone like any items pulled from the standing committee reports? Otherwise, I'll ask for a motion to approve the entirety of, Councillor Gilliland, go ahead.
7.1.5.
Revisions to Town of Aurora sidewalk installation policy. That one?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else?
No.
No. Council? Councillor Gardner?
Mr. Mayor, are we in the sevens?
Yes.
So 7.1.7,
Development planning fees and charges update?
correct, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, council? Seeing none, so if I can get a motion to approve all items in standing committee reports minus 7.1.5 and 7.1.7. Someone like to move that?
I believe Councillor Gilliland has her
Councilor
hand up.
Thompson? Pardon?
Does Councillor Gilliland have her hand up?
No, I think that was from before. Councilor Gilliland, am I correct?
Yeah, it was from before.
Thank you. Okay, so I got Councilor Thompson, Councilor Kim moving and seconding. Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Record a vote for the items not pulled as part of the standing committee reports this evening. Councillor Gardner, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mayor Marakis?
Yes.
Councillor Kim?
Yes.
Councillor Gallo?
Yes.
Councillor Humphries is absent. Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
And Councillor Gilliland.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So we'll move to 6.3. Councilor Gardner, I'm just going to ask and the only reason I'm asking is I'm wondering if we need to go into closed session for this conversation or not.
No, Mr. Mayor.
No? Okay, I'll have, Patricia's on standby, so Patricia, if we start to stray, can you jump on at any time, please? So Councilor Gardner, so we'll put 6.3 on the floor. Do you want to move it as is?
No,
No? Would someone like to move 6.3?
they could be together, Mr. Mayor.
You want me to do both of them? Mr. Clerk, are you okay to do both of them together?
To you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's fine.
Okay, so we'll do 6.3 and 6.4 together. Would someone like to move that? Move both 6.3 and 6.4? Recommendations? Councilor Ken, Councilor Gilliland, Councilor Gardner, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As this matter is not going to be coming back to council, I just want to make the comment that I vote against this because I don't believe it's in the best interest of the residents.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Record vote for items 6.3 and 6.4 on this evening's agenda. Councillor Humphries is absent. Right? Yes. Councillor Kim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
Councillor Gardner?
No,
Councillor Gallo?
Yes.
Councillor Gilliland?
Yes.
And Mayor Marakis.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Mr. Clerk, 6.8, we're just going to attach it to the notice of motion, and we'll deal with it as a receive added clause to that motion.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, so we'll move to 7.1.5, which is the revisions. One sec, let me just pull it up here. Sorry, everyone. So many agendas up here. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. It's the revisions of the Town of Aurora sidewalk installation policy. The recommendation was that report number PDS 21-027 be received, and 2, that the revised sidewalk installation policy number 67 attached hereto as attachment 1 be approved by council. Councilor Gillian, you pulled this. Did you want to move that recommendation?
No, I don't want to move the recommendation, actually. Somebody else.
Would someone like to move the recommendation? Councilor Ken, second. Councilor Thompson, Councilor Gilliland, floor is yours.
Thank you. I know we last kind of had talked about the sidewalk policy, and it was really just about the delegated authority and having the public have a chance to voice their opinion about sidewalk installations. I understand, the backstory and wanting to move these things along. But at the same time, I still want to give the public the opportunity to still speak to a sidewalk, whether or not they want to have that. And I don't see that reflected in the policy here. And so with that, I really don't want to support this. I knew that last time we had spoken about this, I thought I would do a little bit more digging. And I'm not ready to give delegated authority on that. I really want to give the public that opportunity. That's what we're elected to do. If a resident has an issue or concern, or they want to challenge it, I certainly would want them to have the right to be able to come to us and state their opinion as to why, and allow council to collaboratively make that decision as to whether or not it's something that should or should not be done for whatever circumstance it might be at that time.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other comments or questions? Councilor Thompson, and then Councilor Gardner.
Thank you. I certainly understand the opinions of my colleagues around the table. However, the report does say that the public does have an option of going to members of council, and we essentially act as a body of appeal. And so there is a process associated, so they can still stay engaged and involved. But I guess just in terms of the overall process, perhaps through you, Mr. Waters. Mr. Waters, whenever we are going forward with a new sidewalk, what steps do we take to engage and inform the residents on that particular street? Is there notices go out? Is there a public open house? Like, what are all the things we do to notify the residents of the potential for the sidewalk long before a decision is made?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, there is public consultation that's undertaken when we identify gaps in sidewalks through a road reconstruction project. So we will initially reach out to the public through an open house of area residents that are affected by the road reconstruction. We will gather their input. They are advised that they can petition against the sidewalk by having 70% of the area residents sign the petition. Actually, it's 66% in the current policy, and they can then delegate counsel and express their opposition to it. And then we will then receive direction from council on whether to include it or not.
Council?
As a follow-up through you to Mr. Waters again, delegated authority doesn't necessarily mean that you will always make the decision in isolation. You'll take into consideration, I would assume, the feedback from the residents. And if it was a particular sidewalk that, let's say, the public seemed relatively split on, right? I mean, we take Kitimat as an example. Would you not err on the side of caution and bring that to council, or at least include members of council in the decision-making process, knowing full well that it could be a subject that will generate a lot of dialogue, some being for and some being against?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you're correct, Councillor Thompson. We would use our best judgment, and when there was significant opposition, we would advise the residents to first delegate counsel, and we could also follow up with a report if we didn't have any idea that they were going to delegate at all. But my experience to date in Aurora has been that if a resident is opposed to a sidewalk, they will definitely delegate GC or council.
Counselor?
You know, my perspective is that it's our job as members of council to set the policy for the corporation, and it is the directors and staff to implement the policies that we put in place. We're going to put this policy in place. If there are issues, staff know to bring it to us, and if not, they will move forward with the policy. But there is certainly lots of opportunity for the public to be informed, engaged, and if there's an issue, it will come to us, as it has always come to us. And so I'm comfortable with the policy as is.
Counselor Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I hear what Councillor Thompson is saying, and I agree, except in light of the last issue that we had with Kitimat, I would like to agree with Councillor Gilliland on this point.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Gallo?
Thank you, and I don't want to repeat myself from when this came to GC, but I won't be in support of this for the same reasons described. My view on delegated authority is when something is, I guess, so onerous that comes before council, or it's such a simple decision that doesn't need to come to council, then you know, I support that type of thing. But to me, this is not one of those. You know, in my nearly 10 years on council, I can probably count on one hand the amount of times that we've had to discuss these things. So to me, I don't understand the rationale for this particular aspect of it to give delegated authority. It's not as if terribly onerous. Yes, there may be one or two offs that take a little more time than normal, but to me, it's a symbolic of the public's continuing to have a connection with council on decisions that directly impact their day-to-day life, and sidewalks certainly do that. So I won't be supporting.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other comments or questions? I don't want to reiterate as well, but I'll just state that, I mean, regardless if we have lots of things that have delegated authority currently. That doesn't stop any member of the public, and I encourage any member of the public to come visit me in my office and discuss it to me, and I'll bring it to council or to any of you, and to bring it to council, regardless if there's delegated authority or not. That's, to me, that's our job. Our job is to bring the concerns of our residents to this table and implement policies based on that. And so, you know, and find a resolution to it. And so, regardless of what there's delegated authority, and as I said last week, it's incumbent on us as individuals of how we want to treat it. If you want to interact with the public, then you're going to interact with the public, and you're going to bring those concerns to this table, which I always do, and I know all of you do. So regardless if this has that or not, this just allows for some, if there is no opposition, it is clean, it wouldn't come here. And if there is no concerns from the public, well, then there's no reason for it to come to this table. But if there is concerns, then let's bring it to this table, and let's listen to the public, and let's speak on their behalf, and let's do what the public in that area want to do. Councillor Kim?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And, you know, I understand everyone's perspective. I don't see that there's any right or wrong. In fact, there's no wrong in any of the perspectives that's been stated. You know, our role is to represent our residents. You know, our role is to represent the corporation and all of its residents from a long-term planning perspective. When we look at what's best for residents from a safety and security perspective, I think we have an enormous responsibility in that regard. I've mentioned this before and I'll mention it again. I think safety is paramount. And to say that, one cannot say that having a sidewalk provides no safety. Quite the contrary, sidewalks provide safety, whether it's one person who uses it or 1,000 people a day uses it. I've said before that, a street or a sidewalk is safe until it isn't. If one accident happened after 50 years of a complete clean safety record, people will be all over us. Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? It's never appreciated when we do things proactively because people think we don't need it. Certainly, in one case in particular that was mentioned, sure, were some residents inconvenienced? Yes, and you know what? It's not desirable, and I certainly appreciate certain sacrifices they are making. But I think safety is paramount. As I said before, when we're looking at reconstructing streets or creating new streets, we don't ask residents how much lumens or how much light do you need on your street. Some people say, we've all heard it, the lighting is way too bright. I can't sleep. I work during the day and, work shift work and I need some darkness. But there is a safety standard. And so I don't see that there's that much difference with respect to the sidewalk. And I respect and, I agree with it. There's not one thing I disagree with, but I think in the end, I think safety and the town's liability trumps the other issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Humphreys?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just for everyone, I have been on the entire time. I just didn't have my video on. I was in my car. Moving elderly to retirement homes is not easy. But anyway, I just wanted to say that I've thought about this for a long time, and I really understand where Councillor Gilliland is coming from, and Gallo and Councillor Gartner. I absolutely want public opinion constantly. There should be no doubt about that, and they need to come forward, particularly when there's a policy that we have that doesn't suit their needs or goes against logic sometimes, right? But we do have a policy, a sidewalk policy, and it was one that's been around for a while. And we are a walkable town. We are trying our best to constantly make sure that we look at active transportation. So if we get involved to the point where we're going to have those discussions at the first onset, you're almost stopping the policy that we created. And I like what Councillor Thompson said earlier. Sometimes we have to take a step back and realize we set policy, and the policy is set by us, and staff delivers that. And sometimes we get back into those weeds. And trust me, I was the one fighting for no sidewalk on Kitimat. Very hard, and Councillor Kim knows that. I'm still not happy with that. And I think if it was delegated authority, nothing would be different at this point. If we had it or didn't have it, the outcome would have been the same. We all tried. I fought against it right almost to the end, and the residents decided we might as well come to a compromise and make sure their driveways were fitted and so on and so forth. And there's still a problem there. So sidewalks or no sidewalks there, it makes no difference. It hasn't resolved the issue there. I've got to call into Michael, Mr. Batts, to continue discussions with the school board to change the configuration there for safety issues. That's the problem there, not a sidewalk. So I feel this came forward because of an issue, and we hope that this would have fixed it, and it didn't, whether it's there or not. So, and I appreciate, I didn't think this was going to come up tonight, but since it has, in terms of not going for it, I do believe we need to continue with our policy that was put forward a long time ago, that we have a walkable community and sidewalks are put in place when they're put in place. This one got changed for whatever reason for Kitimat. But I do believe that we need to have staff do their job, continue to implement our policies. That's what we do, and not get in the weeds of those things. And when a resident is unhappy, all the power. We have to support them and listen to their position, and policies aren't one fits all. But typically when we believe in something, and I think we believe in a walkable community and active transportation, and because of one awful situation, I'm sorry, I hope I'm not offending anybody, but Kitimat's not, I'm not happy about it. Sorry, Councillor Kim. I do think that we leave it back to staff to do what they need to do. And when a resident isn't pleased, I hope they come forward and we help them understand their point of view and hopefully come up with a logical, safe decision. So as far as I'm concerned, I would like to leave this with staff, and all residents absolutely at any time can come forward and ask for our support and their viewpoint. And I've gone so far as I've helped residents after they've gone to committee of adjustment, after the decision is made, and had CAOs talk to these residents, because I'd never want to give up if I can help it for them, even when a decision's been made and it's long gone, because I do understand that residents are impacted by sometimes our policies. So there's no doubt about it that not one size fits all, but we always have an opportunity to come forward, and residents always have an opportunity to come forward, ask for our support and their opinion, and we can get involved at that time and change the policy as we feel is proper and at utmost safety for the residents. So in my opinion, I think we need to move forward with delegated authority. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gilliland, I'll let you go a second time. I'm just going to remind you, we've all spoken once. Unless we're bringing something new to the table, I'm going to ask that we move forward with the vote. Councillor Gilliland, I'll let you finish.
Thank you. Although I see Councillor Gartner has her hand up as well. So does she want to speak first?
I'll ask her if you're not bringing anything new to the table, if it's just going to be rehashing what we've just gone through, and we rehashed the conversation we had last week. As per our procedural bylaw, that's technically not allowed. You're supposed to be bringing something new to the table.
I think I have something to add.
Okay, Councillor Gartner, go ahead.
You know, Councillor Humphrey said something that really makes me want to not have this policy. I think we need to get residents involved from the very beginning. And that happens when it comes to council. And I hope we've learned lessons from Kitimat, because as Councillor Humphrey said, we did not take everything into consideration. And the thing we didn't take into consideration was that if we decrease the width of the road with the sidewalk, then, and we allowed parking, we were going to create a safety issue. And we did. We had an ambulance that couldn't get through. So I think that the more involvement we have in situations where residents are unhappy, maybe we can think these things through a little clearer, learning from Kitimat.
Councillor Gallo, second that.
Thank you, and I'll be quick, and I don't think this has been said yet. So the biggest difference to me, and I'm not suggesting that we are completely pushing the public out and not having them have a say, but there's a significant difference to what we're doing now and what this policy is recommending. And it's the fact that council will no longer be part of the decision-making process, meaning there won't be a report to council of the sidewalks. So it won't trigger any public seeing on a public agenda that that's happening, although they will be advised. I'm sure the letters will go out, but the process is going to be very, very different. They will have to, as you said, Mr. Mayor, approach us. We would have to have conversations with staff. We would have to bring it up under new business, or we would have to a notice of motion. The process is very, very different. Yes, they are aware. Yes, they can reach out to us, but we as a council are removed from that process. Staff will be making that decision, and for the public to get to us, to get on a public agenda, for us to make any difference is very, very different and very onerous compared to what we're doing now. That's what I have a problem. If the path was smoother, I wouldn't have a problem. But what's being proposed is not that easy for the public to provide input in order for us to make some type of change or have a public discussion about it. It would be very difficult.
Yeah, Councillor Gillen, second that.
Thank you. Councillor Gallo, I think you kind of summed it all up, so I won't repeat all that, but that's exactly what I was going to touch on. And also the fact that we are changing, increasing the petition to a 70% against as well. Kitimat, as an example, they were, I know it was probably at least 80 to 90%, so there was a lot of merit for them coming forward. But it is making it a lot difficult to gain that petition level on other circumstances by raising that percentage level as well. So I won't repeat everything Councillor Gallo said. I agree with all that in the process. It's just the removing part of the council in that process that I'm struggling with, and I'd really like to keep that there.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Humphries. I hope it's something new.
I have something new. Kitimat happened without delegated authority. We said no to the sidewalks. Staff said yes, we said no. They came forward, we said no. And then there was a motion and resident urged us to make sidewalks happen. And we as a council overrode all that and voted yes. So without delegated authority, we still put sidewalks in against, my opinion only, and a few others, not the right thing to do. So guys, delegated authority wouldn't have changed that situation whatsoever. What I think we need to think about here is let the people do the work and let us set the policy. And when the policy doesn't suit the residents have the democratic right to come to us and say, I don't like your policy for my street. And this is why. And I think you can get 80% to 100% when they're not happy. I've seen it happen. I did my own on Golf Links when we had issues with speed there. We had over 90%. When the residents aren't happy, we listen, and we all do. You know that. So I don't believe delegated authority would have changed Kitimat because we already did our thing and turned it down. So I think we did listen very clearly when they came to us. Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm just reminding why delegated authority wouldn't have made a difference. And that's what we're thinking about when we're talking about this issue, because it's so fresh in our minds. So now we still have a problem there. And if it's not going to get solved by staff investigating and have a motion come forward to re-engage with the school board and get that layout changed where the buses are going today, there's a whole great plan that will resolve the safety issue that the sidewalks would not fix. So delegated authority or not, in this situation, it doesn't make a difference. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. I might be wrong, but I think that Kitimat decision at the end was a unanimous vote.
Yes, maybe.
Just thought I would remind everyone about that. With that, I'll call the vote. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Record vote for the item on the sidewalk installation policy. Councillor Thompson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Gallo?
No.
Councillor Kim?
Yes.
Councillor Gilliland?
No.
Councillor Gardner?
No.
Councillor Humphries?
Yes. Yes.
And Mayor Marakis.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Moving to 7.1.7, which is development planning fees and charges update. Mr. Clerk, can I get that on the screen? The recommendation was that report number PDS 21-010 be received, and 2, that the recommended updates to the town's development planning fees and charges as presented in this report and attached Appendix A, Schedule H, the fees and charges bylaw be approved, and that the appropriate bylaw amendment be presented to a future council meeting for enactment. Councillor Gardner, you pulled this one. Did you want to move that recommendation?
No, Mr.
No.
Mayor.
Would someone like to move that recommendation? Councillor Kim, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Councillor Gardner, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm looking at the report on page 3 of 6. And it says that in the stable neighborhoods, it was recognized that the majority of these applications are from town residents. It's talking about site plans and committee of adjustment. And therefore no fee increase is requested. So my position on this is that certainly if a resident with either site plan or committee of adjustment, if a resident is coming forward, and it's easy to check that because of tax rolls, then I agree. There shouldn't be an increase in fee for our residents. But especially with the site plans, if a resident wants to tear down their home and put up a new home, that's fine, let's not charge them. But if a developer wants to tear down a home and put up a new home, then those fees should definitely apply to them.
Mr. Waters? Are we talking about just increases or are we talking about just the fees in general?
No, we're talking about the increases for 2021 and 2022.
Okay, because I thought the last thing you said, Councillor, sorry, and maybe I just didn't hear it correctly. I thought you said that the fee should be towards the develop. If it's an increase, that's fine. Mr. Waters?
But not, but
Yeah,
thank you.
I apologize, Councillor. I heard it wrong. Mr. Waters?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I have a solution that will address the concerns raised by Councillor Gardner. So currently, we do not distinguish between non-owner occupied versus owner occupied, which is non-owner occupied is basically the builder who comes in, buys the property and redevelops it. So what I suggest we could consider is the full cost recovery of the fee for a non-owner occupied, which would be approximately $1,533, and that would be 100% of cost recovery for processing a stable neighborhood site plan, and leave the owner occupied fee at $1,047.
Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Waters. I appreciate you suggesting a compromise. I don't have the chart in front of me with the site plan fees. So that chart would apply to non-owner, to builders.
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, what we would do is we would insert another line item for what we would basically distinguish between owner occupied and then non-owner occupied, and charge the full cost recovery for non-owner occupied applications for site plan.
Councillor?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Waters. I think that's a very fair compromise because we're helping our residents, but we're also helping the town with income by distinguishing between a resident and a builder. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. Thanks for bringing that up. Councillor Gallo?
Thank you. Just through you, Mr. Mayor. Someone just identify on the chart in GC which one we're talking about.
Mr. Waters, which fee are we, which page number would it be? Which attachment appendix would it be?
Through you,
Are we
Mr.
talking
Mayor,
the
I
whole
believe
appendix?
it's 92 of 110. I'm sorry,
Okay.
I'm looking at the
That's
GC
fine.
agenda from
Okay.
first.
Yeah.
So it would be under. Sorry, I think I may have gone a little too far here.
So would it be down at the bottom where it says site plan exemption and site plan review stable neighborhood?
That's correct, sir. Yes.
So Councillor Gallo, down at the, it's the last two on that page 92, just before it goes to committee of adjustments.
That's correct.
Okay. So can
Yes,
you
it would be
just
the
go
third line item up from that.
through you, can you just go through those numbers again, what you're suggesting?
Mr. Waters?
Certainly. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So what we're suggesting is that for non-owner occupied applications for site plans within stable neighborhoods, we charge the full cost recovery, which is approximately $1,500 to $33, and leave the 1,047 fee for owner occupied applications.
Okay, that sounds fair. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Gardner, you want to speak a second time?
Yes,
Go ahead.
sorry. No, I remember looking at this chart and there were fees that went from, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, 6,000 to 9,000. What am I looking at? I'm going to try and find it.
There's minor and amending plans that start, there's 3,500 and they go all the way up 8,300, from 3,500 to 8,300. There's that
So
one.
Is this under the section that says site plan?
Mr. Waters?
That's correct. Through Mr. Mayor, that's correct. I think it's important to note that for 21, we are not applying the full fee, but applying 50% of the fee increase, considering the implementation period, which will likely be, halfway through the year. So we've prorated that based on a 6-month term, and then for 2022, we'll be charging the full increase plus the rate of inflation.
Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Anything else, Council? Call vote. Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just before we get to the vote, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong, maybe Mr. Waters, but does that require an amendment
Mr.
to?
Waters, do you require an amendment on that, or are you guys just doing that?
We should
Or
have
do you want us to direct you with an amendment?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, I heard council loud and clear, and I'll take that as direction of staff.
Councillor, did you prefer to put the amendment?
I think because we're making a change, it should,
Okay.
and we're discussing it in public, it should be an amendment.
Sure. So how about the amendment is that there would be a difference, a different fee for owner occupied to non-owner occupied. And then staff
It
will
would be-
do the exact numbers, but we can say that we want to have a non-owner occupied.
So it would be that changes to the planning development fees and charges would reflect a different fee for an owner occupied and a non-owner occupied property.
There you go, right there. That the fee for a non-owner occupied site plan application be based on full cost recovery basis within stable neighborhoods between site plans and applications. How's that?
Thank you. And what about the committee of adjustment fees? That's included in the same package?
Would that be considered under this, Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. No, there are two different fees.
Okay.
So with regards to minor variances, we would take the same approach where we would charge full cost recovery, which is about $4,500 for a minor variance fee for a non-owner occupied application within stable neighborhoods, and maintain the existing fee, which is about $2,500 or for owner occupied minor variance applications. Same approach.
Thank
Mr.
Thank
Clerk,
you,
can
Mr.
just add- Yeah, can you just add committee of adjustment to that, please, Mr. Clerk?
To you, Mr. Mayor, yes, absolutely. The wording was slightly awkward before, so we've prepared something slightly, it's different than we just put up, but it is the same thing as Mr. Waters has outlined with the non-owner occupied site plan applications within stable areas. And we'll add committee of adjustment applications to that as well.
Thank you. If I can get that up on the screen and then call the vote.
Yes, I'll just take us a second.
Sure. Okay. So the amendment is that the fee for non-owner occupied site plan and committee of adjustment applications be based on a full cost recovery basis within stable neighborhood areas. Councilor Gunner, you're okay with that?
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, could I get someone to second that? Because I don't think I did. Councilor Humphries, thank you. I'll call the vote on the amendment. Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Record vote for the amendment to the report currently on the floor regarding fees for the Planning and Development Services Department. Mayor Maracus, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilor Gardner?
Yes.
Councilor Gallo?
Yes.
Councilor Kim?
Yes.
Councilor Thompson?
Yes.
Councilor Gilliland?
Yes.
And Councilor Humphries.
Yes.
Thank you. The amendment carries.
Thank you. Back to the main motion as amended. Councilor Gilliland, something?
Sorry, no, I thought we were done, sorry.
Oh, okay. No, I got to call the vote on the main motion as amended. Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Record vote for the main motion as amended. Councilor Gallo, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilor Gilliland?
Yes.
Councilor Humphries?
Yes.
Councilor Gardner?
Yes.
Mayor Maracus?
Yes.
Councilor Kim?
Yes.
And Councilor Thompson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Council will move to 8.1. Councilor Gilliland. Point of order.
Thank you. I just want to kind of clarify misunderstanding when we were pulling what we wanted to pull. I thought we were going to pull separate GC dates. So when we're doing 7.1, I thought we're going to have an opportunity to do the 7.2 because it reflected a different week. And so as such, I didn't request any pulling for that particular agenda week. So I was hoping I could make a pull on that.
You'd have to ask to waive procedural bylaw to bring it back.
Okay, so I'm asking to waive procedural bylaw in it to pull an item from GC of March 23rd,
Which item?
7.2.7.
Pedestrian connection from Library Square to Town Park. Call the vote. Wait, 2/3, Mr. Clerk?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Technically, there should be two-thirds votes here, but if you wanted to include in the same motion, it does look like council is supportive of it. So if you wanted to include that, the procedure bylaw be waived and that the reconsideration requirements be waived in the same motion, that would be correct.
All right, we can do that. Council, were you guys putting up your hands because you want to speak to the waiving of the procedural bylaw? Okay, so I'll call the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's recorded vote for reconsideration and waiving of the procedure bylaw for item 7.2.7 from this evening's agenda. Mr. Mayor, do you have a mover and seconder on this?
Moved by Councilor Gilliland, seconded by Councilor Gardner.
Thank you. Councilor Gardner, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mayor Maracus?
Yes.
Councilor Kim?
Yes.
Councilor Humphries?
Yes.
Councilor Gilliland?
Yes.
Councilor Gallo?
Yes.
And Councilor Thompson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So we'll move to 7.2.7, pedestrian connection from Library Square to Town Park. Mr. Clerk, could I get that up on the screen, please? Thank you. The recommendation out of general committees that one, that report number PDS 21-038 be received. Two, that a sidewalk on the north side of Metcalf Street from Victoria Street to Wells Street serve as the pedestrian connection between Library Square and Town Park. Three, that staff proceed with the in-house design of a sidewalk, including the arborist report on the north side of Metcalf Street from Victoria to Wells Street. And four, that staff report back on the findings to a future general committee meeting prior to the project being included in the 2022 capital budget. Councilor Gilliland, you pulled this. Did you want to move that recommendation?
No, not at this time.
Would someone like to move that recommendation? Councilor Thompson, second. Councillor Caroline, floor is yours.
Thank you. I did have a few outstanding questions about this project. I understand that this was a result of a consultation by the Fulton Group that happened kind of before my time. Through Mr. Baird to Mr. Waters, this consultation from the Fulton Group, is this a reflection of what's being presented today? Is that where this is stemmed from, this report?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the pedestrian connection was born through the FOTEN work that was done, I believe, in 2015, 2016, that looked at redevelopment of the cultural precinct with two anchors being Library Square and also Town Park.
Councillor?
Thank you. And it also encompassed, I believe, a redesign of Town Park at that time. So is that redesign still happening?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm not aware of any redevelopment on Town Park at all at this point.
Councillor?
Thank you. And so, I mean, I was trying to ponder, you know, this connectivity, and I think having a connection is great. And I think the whole point was to create almost kind of like a wide kind of pedestrian boardwalk per se through Trinity Church and from Library Square or whatever the square or whatever it was going to be called to Town Park redesign. And it's come back not really have a really grand purpose there because it doesn't work. So the alternative has, okay, let's come back with the sidewalk. And, you know, upon, you know, walking around the neighborhood, I realized, well, we have sidewalk on both sides on Mosley Street already. And we have a sidewalk on the south side as well as on Metcalf as well. And so, you know, I'm asking myself, like, is this something that needs to happen right now? Is this something that's a priority in our budget right now? Through Mr. Mayor to Mr. Waters, is there a demand for pedestrian traffic right now to where we really need to have this additional sidewalk at this time?
Waters? Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't have an assessment of that for you at this point in time, but theoretically it's intended to connect the two anchors, which is Town Park on one side and Library Square on the other. As a rule of thumb, it's always good to have pedestrian connections to facilitate active transportation.
Councillor?
Thank you. And we already have that connection currently on the south side and two on Metcalf as well. Sorry, Mosley as well. I mean, again, so I'm just prioritizing things here, and I think it's a great idea, but it's just the timing of it, I feel, is something that maybe we could wait. And through Mr. Mayor to Mr. Waters, is this road not planned for resurfacing in 2027?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that is correct. That's when it's up for resurfacing. It may get postponed or moved back if the road is in good condition at that point in time.
Councillor?
Thank you. And I'm assuming that would also mean surrounding streets probably fall under the same bucket within our repair and replacement plan, which could mean a few of the streets need to be repaired. So would it not be a little bit more cost effective to resurface the road and install the sidewalk at the same time? And make an assessment as well, whether or not it's needed. So if we are going to construct, resurface and do the sidewalk, would it not be more cost effective?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, it would be you would achieve economies of scale if you did combine it with a road reconstruction project.
Councillor?
Thank you. So I'm listening, you know, I'm listening to what I'm hearing from staff about being less expensive. In 2027, we're going to be revisiting this. I believe it might be something we could talk about in 2024, 2025, with conversations I had with staff as well. So I just feel like it might make more sense to wait till that time to resurface and do a sidewalk at the same time. I understand the whole connectivity with the boardwalk kind of analogy in Trinity Church, but since that's not the case and it's not going to work for various reasons that staff's not recommending, I feel we have sufficient connectivity with the sidewalks that we have in place now to move people from one place, being Library Square, to Town Park sufficiently without feeling disconnected. So just looking at things as a priority in our budget and being more cost effective, I would prefer to wait and revisit this at the time when it's to be resurfaced, the roads, and then look at putting those sidewalks in.
Thank you, Councillor Humphries.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and yeah, that makes absolute sense if there's budget considerations and pros and cons. The other comment that I think I made at the last meeting, our GC, was I wanted staff to come back, and I know they were focusing on that area, and there was some reasons as to why they couldn't do it in the original spot or original sort of vision that was presented years ago. And the connectivity certainly is something that, there's some now, but more of a, as Councillor Gilliland mentioned, the boardwalk sort of view and the vision of that. What I was hoping that, though, is that staff can still continue to, this is a report, and come back with some of those considerations and perhaps provide that cost-effective approach, whether they want to, is it what happens if we implement this sooner than the road construction or not, just like we did for other areas. Sometimes we move projects up or push them back depending on the urgency or priority. I understand exactly, Councillor Gilliland, where you're coming from, but I would really like to see a report come back on findings, and also if there's other ideas. I think I mentioned that I'd love to see perhaps a connectivity on the other north end. I know we had some issues, I get it, but maybe there's something that can be creatively put together if possible. So I'd still like to see a report, and this is not providing an approval whatsoever, but at least a report to come back. I love the opportunity, and then absolutely look at those options and considerations for budget and so on. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Just to echo some of the comments, I mean, I agree. The only thing the motion before us asked for is just a report, and I think Councillor Gilliland raises some good points, as does Councillor Humphries. I would expect that when staff come back that they include all of that information, anything that's relevant to our decision, including anticipated savings of any future construction on the redoing of the road. And then we can all have this conversation again when that report comes to us on whether we think that it's something we should move forward with at this time or not. But for now, I'm comfortable supporting the motion just to bring a report with all the information we need to make a well-informed decision.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Interesting comments. I think the motion would better reflect everything that's been said by just inserting the word proposed before the word sidewalk. I would like to make that amendment.
On which part, Councillor?
Can you put the motion on the screen? I believe it's right at the beginning. I believe it's in the first line.
So you're suggesting that a proposed sidewalk,
Yes. Oh, so it's point two. Yes.
that a proposed sidewalk on the north side. That's what you'd like it to say.
Yes, please.
Councillor Thompson, you moved that. You fine with that? No?
No.
So Councillor, I'll put that as an amendment. Would someone like to second?
Yes, please.
Would someone like to second that amendment? That the word proposed be inserted? Councillor Gilliland, Councillor Gardner, go ahead.
I think I've said it. I mean,
Okay. That's fine then. I'll go to Councillor Gallo.
Really,
Got his arm up
really-
on the amendment, please.
Mr. Mayor, excuse
Yeah.
me, really, the word propose just described everything that we've been discussing. Thank you.
Councillor Gallo, to the amendment, please.
Yeah, I'd support that. I mean, to be quite honest, I would have removed entire to me. It doesn't. What I don't like is that it serves as a pedestrian connection. That part to me doesn't. 1, 3, and 4 would achieve what we're trying to achieve without sending any direction that this is what we're actually going to do. And it doesn't really change much. 2 doesn't really add anything other than to say that that is what we're doing, it will serve as a pedestrian connection. Adding proposed, I guess, fixes that. To me, I would remove entire number 2.
Mr. Mayor, I would be fine with that.
So you want to make a change to your amendment to add the word propose and remove pedestrian connection between Library Square and Town Park?
Thank you.
You okay with that, Councillor Gillen?
Can I see it up on the board?
Sure. While he's putting it up, it would just say that a proposed sidewalk be constructed on the north side of Metcalf Street from Victoria Street to Wells Street.
A proposed on which point? Number 3 or 2?
That a proposed sidewalk be constructed on the north side of Metcalf Street from Victoria Street to Wells Street. That's
Right.
it.
Right.
There it is.
On with that. Thank you.
You okay with that change?
Yes.
Okay, I'll allow that as a friendly amendment to the amendment. Mr. Clerk? Any other, Councilor Thompson, hands up. To the amendment, please.
Well, I guess grammatically, it doesn't make much sense, but aside from that, in terms of process, we deal with things all the time. We send things to the budget frequently throughout the course of our term, ask for reports. If we're going to put propose in every single one and stick to that process, fine. But I'm curious why we're all of a sudden making this into such a different issue than typically how we deal with things. And I'll use the crossings at Cousins as an example. I didn't support it, but the majority of people did. And so it's gone to budget. But I didn't hear everybody clamoring for the word proposed in it or concerns about the process and what the intent was. We just simply sent it to budget, get more information and discuss it. The last time this was before us in GC, we've taken that additional step that say, even before we go to budget, let's just simply get a report with the information, and then we can decide whether or not it merits going to budget or not. We still have extra decision points along the way. So I don't understand the extra concern and the need to put proposed in it, unless we want to do that for every single thing that now comes before us that we say, well, we need a report or we want to go to send it to budget. I mean, all of a sudden we're reinventing the wheel here. Let's just stick to what we normally do. Ask for a report. If it's got merit, go for it. If it doesn't, then we pass. And so I'm not in support of the amendment.
Councilor Humphries, to the amendment, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just, the amendment's removing, the statement, but the actual motion is a pedestrian connection. So we're removing that statement, but the proposal is a connection. Anyway, I'm not sure. I'm trying to understand why we're doing this. I'm not clear on why we want to remove the whole comment. And isn't that going to be confusing for staff? Because what are we saying that for them to do? It's not a sidewalk anymore. It's a connection. I'm not sure. Just a little confused about that. I just think I have to think about it. I'd like to hear some more comments, please, so I can understand why we're removing that. I just like would someone mind? I don't know. Is the motion still on? I've lost it. Can you have
Clerk, can
it
you
back?
put the motion back up?
Can you
please?
put the motion? Yeah, the amendment, I should say. Yeah,
The
thank you.
amendment.
So it's pedestrian connection from Library Square to Town Park. And then it says a proposed sidewalk on the north side of Metcalf Street. Service, we removed what the title is. I'm not sure what. Anyway, I guess are we trying to remove the connotation that this has anything to do with Library Square? Because that's what it sounds like. It absolutely sounds that way, but we can't because Library Square is in the topic in the item. Okay. Anyways, I'd like to hear some more comments. I don't know what the reason is to remove that. It doesn't make sense to me, but anyway, I think that's exactly why we're doing this, is to connect Library Square to pedestrian. It's connectivity for Library Square. That's what the intent is. Anyway, thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions to the amendment? Councilor Gallo, second time to the amendment.
Thanks. I'll just clarify what I I would, as I said before, I would have removed the entire 2 and it would have been sufficient for me. It's not removing Library Square. To me, it's removing that word serve. Because to me, it's making a statement that we are doing this. That's how I read it. Be honest, nor here nor there. I think the other 2 really speak to what we're trying to get to, come back to a GC and have an arborist. So those other 2 work for me. And I really don't even need item number 2, and this could have moved forward just the same.
Councillor Gilliland, second time. To the amendment, please.
Thank you. For me, the important word is proposed, because to me, it's a statement that's saying that we are going to be doing this. I appreciate this is staff coming back with a report and a budget. You know, at the end of the day, if the consensus around the table is to come back with this report, I want to see that word proposed in there just for language purposes. But overall, for me, just using staff's time and trying to prioritize where our budget should be and staff, and if this is going to resurface, I just feel this is something that could personally, I just think should wait until closer to 2027, maybe bring this up back in 2025. And, you know, think about it at that time, once Library Square is open and, you know, there is more pedestrian activity. I just feel like right now it's just not a priority, but if we are going to be making amendments and, you know, the consensus is to move this forward, for me, the term is proposed. I have no issue of it being considered a connection from one place to another, but the reality is we already have the connection. And I think this stemmed from having a more wider boardwalk from in the middle of Trinity. So this was considered, if I may, through Mr. Mayor to Mr. Waters, this was considered as an alternative to what we originally were asking based on the Fountain consultation that was given to us. Could you confirm that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. So we looked at the FO10 connection and we determined that it wasn't feasible to implement. So we moved to the next option, which was a sidewalk on the north side of Metcalfe.
Thank you. Thank you. So it just, that connection in the middle or boardwalk or whatever you want to call it, that vision, you know, was a great idea at the time. Just didn't work. It's not working in the way we want. So now the alternative is to put an additional sidewalk in. And I get that. We're faced with, you know, heritage trees and, you know, obviously costs. And there's a lot more work to do for staff. You know, it's going to cost some money to the town to get an arborist to come in and make an assessment. And I'm just taking the lens of priority budgeting and trying to understand if this is something that is a need right now for us to be having staff spend their time and designing a sidewalk right now and directing to say it will be installed with this budget, you know, and I just, for me, it's the proposed. But again, proposed, as long as that word's in there, I'll be happy. But when it comes back, I'm most likely may not be in support of it moving forward. I just don't think right now is a time that we need to really focus on this sidewalk at this time. It can be done later at the time of resurfacing.
Councillor Gardner, second time. Councillor Gardner, and I'm just going to make a suggestion. To be honest with you, as it's worded right now, it really doesn't make sense. What my suggestion would be is that if you feel strongly that wording should be removed, that we should vote on that clause separately, and if you want, vote it down. But I'll allow the amendment to stand for now, but I'm just letting you know my thoughts. But go ahead, Councillor Gardner, second time.
I think actually Councillor Gallo was right about removing the other clauses, but I don't want to confuse Councillor Humphreys. I think she does agree that we need to see what's going on with the trees before we can call this a sidewalk. So I'm, and I don't think it does that much to, sorry, Councillor Gallo, to remove those words. So if we can go back to the original motion, if that provides clarity for Councillor Humphreys.
So are
Just
you withdrawing your?
I
amendment?
no, I need to ask her if the word is just proposed and we leave the rest of it. Does that?
That, through Mr.
That-
Mayor, that's clear for me because the words are all there. And then you've got propose, which I think helps,
Okay,
you know, some around the table is perfect.
okay. Councillor Gardner?
Thank you. If at risk of making council crazy and Councillor Gilland as well, Councillor Gilland, shall we go back to our original amendment?
So Councillor, as the mover, you're asking to go back to the original amendment where it said, all we did was add the word proposed. To
Thank
what-
you.
What is there in number
I-
2?
I don't think it accomplishes, by taking out the rest, I don't think it accomplishes what Councillor Gallo wants to accomplish. So we could make a further amendment, but I think I'd like just to go back to the original proposed.
Let me just get, Councillor Gillan, you're okay with that? Okay, so we remove that friendly amendment that we put on. So we're back to the original, which is up on the screen right now, that a proposed sidewalk on north side of Metcalf Street from Victoria Street to Wells Street serve as the pedestrian connection between Library Square and Town Park. If there's no other comments, I'm going to call a vote on the amendment. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Recorded vote for the amendment on the table right now. Councillor Gilland, how do you vote?
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Mayor Marakis?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson?
No.
Councillor Humphreys?
Yes.
Councillor Kim?
Yes.
Councillor Gardner?
Yes,
And Councillor Gallo.
Yes.
Amendment carries.
Thank you. Back to the main motion as amended. Councillor Gardner, did you want to finish up? You still have the floor.
I'm done. Thank you.
You're done. Thank you. Any other comments or questions to the main motion as amended? Point of order, Councillor Gillian?
Sorry, wrong hand. And I'm clicking the wrong thing here. Sorry. I just wanted to have the motion up while we're discussing because there's been so many changes with language. So is there a way that the clerk could have the motion up while we're discussing any other comments? That would be great because I don't have it in front of me anywhere.
So I gotta say, so far, I don't have any other comments, so.
That's fine. So we can just keep it up for a second so we can read it. That would be great before we do any voting.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Call the vote.
Recorded vote for the main motion as amended. Councillor Kim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Gilliland?
No,
Councillor Humphreys?
Yes.
Councillor Gallo?
Yes.
Councillor Gardner?
Yes,
Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
And Mayor Marakis.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So we will move to item 8.1, Heritage Permit Application, HPA 2021-03, 28 Wellington Street West. And it's the recommendations that report number PDS 21-044 be received. 2, that the heritage permit application HPA 2021-03 be approved to replace the decorative window surrounds from the dormers on the Alfred Love House located at 28 Wellington Street West. And 3, that the tree removal permit application for 28 Wellington Street West be approved. Would someone like to move that recommendation? Councillor Humphreys, second. Councillor Thompson, comments or questions? Councillor Humphreys, you have your hand up? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for a little bit of information, I'm sure Mr. Waters can add to it as well. And Carlson, I just wanted to say that this owner in particular, from what we've seen, is very conscientious and is looking very forward to turning this building into a gem. He's absolutely looking at the wonderful work done at the home. I don't want to quote wrong. John McDonald, John's house, the State Farm, the beautiful gem, the way they've really done a great job. He wants to do the same with this beautiful building that has been really, unfortunately, deteriorating over the years. And what he did was he's replacing the windows with from a hack had provided approval. And while he was doing that, had those severe dormers damage, absolute severe. And he notified the town through his application permits and sent pictures and had gone to a specialist carpenter to do replicas of these dormers that are more brilliant, just bringing it back to its former glory. So I just wanted to thank owners like this for going through the extra mile, making us aware. Hack members were amazing in turnaround times to provide their feedback, knowing that, seconds were counting with the windows removed and rain and so on would just cause even further damage. The cost to the owner was probably an additional $13,000 to $14,000, but he wants to do it right. And I just, again, wanted to commend the owner for doing this. He informed us and was just in absolute panic that he wanted to get this done before any further damage. Hack provided some very positive feedback. Many of us have driven by one of the many strong authorities on Hack. Again, we're very happy to see the work that was being done and looking forward to seeing that building. So I just want to share that with my colleagues. Mr. Waters may want to add additional details, if any, but I just wanted to thank Hack personally for their response and allowing this great work to be to move forward. So just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gallo?
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, just to Councillor Humphreys, I just want to confirm that I guess outside of a Hack meeting, people gave their input and there were no issues on the committee.
Through Mr. Mayor, unfortunately, there was no Hack meeting. This is a rush. It's come directly to council. So the feedback was only provided through email correspondence so that Hack could participate prior to our meeting today. The next Hack meeting will be next week. And I'm sure we'll be discussing this sort of as an after effect. But again,
I understood that. I'm just
sorry.
curious, in those email through you, Mr. Mayor, was everyone okay with it? Did anyone have any issues?
No, I saw no negative issues. Mr. Waters, you can correct me on that, but following the emails that I saw, I saw no negative.
I'll also confirm that, Councillor Gallo. I was on the trail. I didn't see one. I think every single member of Hack commented in their role in a positive way, saying let's move forward with this.
I just want to confirm that. And then secondly, just through you to Mr. Waters, are we in any way concerned about setting any precedents here? I'm happy to move this forward. I don't have an issue. I just concerned if we're setting any precedents, number one. Number two, as far as the tree removal, is there an urgency on that? Or did we just combine this just to because it's coming to council? Is there an urgency in terms of the tree removal?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. On the precedent question, no, I will not set precedent. This is a special circumstance, given the fact that we're in a bit of a rainy season in terms of spring, and that the owner was ready to replace the windows until he found out that the dormers were rotten and had to be replaced. So we had to move quickly on this, recognizing that it is a very beautiful property and should be restored to its original state. Second of all, on the trees, the cedar trees are causing water damage to the foundation. There are no swales in the backyard, so it's been impacting the foundation. So we thought it was opportunistic to sort of combine the two requests into one report and get it addressed by council tonight.
Councillor?
For you, Mr. Mayor, what would be the normal procedure for the removal permit?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in the case of being on a listed or designated property, it would go to Hack for consultation, similar to a heritage permit for any kind of restoration work. And as was noted earlier, we did circulate the tree permit and also the heritage permit via email correspondence to all the HAC members, and no negative or no objections were received through that circulation.
Counselor?
Okay, just to confirm, the tree removal was also a discussion point in those emails?
Counselor?
Through Mr.
I'm sorry,
Correct.
Mr. Water?
That's correct. That's correct, sir.
Counselor?
Okay, thank you. That was it.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Counselor Humphreys, second time? Oh,
Sorry, I just,
Counselor Humphreys, will you hold up? I got Counselor Delaney for the first time.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Waters, just based on what Councillor Gallo was saying in respect to the trees and such, I'm just curious as to, I understand it's a heritage property, but just at the same time with the Environmental Advisory Committee, I would wonder, if that was also a committee that would require some sort of input. I realize this is a little too late for that, and I get that, but I would want to assume that the Environment Advisory Committee would also be notified when it has something to do with tree removal. Is that not something typically that should cross our desk?
Waters?
For you, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to defer to Mr. Downey because his group deals with processing tree permits. So I really can't comment on whether they are brought forward to the EAC. I know that they are brought forward to HAC if they're on a heritage property, either listed or designated.
Mr. Downey?
So thank you and good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. The tree permit bylaw does not require a review by the Environmental Committee, but only by the Heritage Committee. So it would not come forward to the Environmental Committee at this point.
Counselor?
Thank you. Well, I guess something that I'd like to change as a practice and ensure that these types of things that are related to the environment, which are trees, would come across the Environmental Committee's desk. It does impact climate, it does impact carbon. I don't disagree personally with the cedars that are being asked to removed. As a result of the assessment, though, I do see there's a lot of other trees that are going to be recommended to be removed. I happen to know what a Manitoba maple is and don't disagree with what they can cause. And I'm just curious as to the assessment made with the Manitoba maples. Was that just done voluntarily but proactively, or is this a request from the actual resident?
Mr. Downey? Or Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I believe there was a tree permit, a removal issued for the maples earlier in, I believe, February, if I recall. Mr. Downey can correct me on that. But I believe there was an arborist report and the removal was approved.
Mr. Downey?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. Mr. Waters is correct. The tree was removed as a hazardous tree. We felt that there was some dry rot happening in the crotch, and it was a tree that needed to come down as a hazardous tree.
Counselor?
Thank you. I mean, I understand you're saying a tree, but it does say on the map 7 trees, 7 Manitoba maples, and then an elm tree as well on the map. I just wanted a little bit of, background of how this came to be. If you can clarify that. I understand the pruning of the trees that are circled in green. It makes sense. I understand that. If you could shed some light on the interpretation, that would be great.
Mr. Downey?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, my understanding from staff was that the trees were evaluated and were evaluated as hazardous trees. The health was not good. They felt that there was some concern with regards to the conditions of the tree. And as per the tree permit bylaw, if it's a hazardous tree, they can be removed by the owner.
Counselor?
Thank you. So that clarifies it. I thought this was a tree, but based on what you had said earlier, but you just confirmed that it was all those trees were considered hazardous. So I'm just curious as to Is there a reason why then, if it's considered hazardous and staff deem it hazardous, why would those trees need to come to council?
Mr. Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, with regards to hazardous trees, there's always a concern with regards to them possibly causing damage. So hazardous trees can be removed as part of the bylaw process. However, if there is a tree that is not hazardous and within a heritage district, it must come to the Heritage Committee. Staff have not got delegated authority to allow those trees to be removed.
Counselor?
Okay, sorry, maybe I'm confused. I understand that the cedars were the issue with the grading and on a heritage property, and perhaps it need to come to council and have some approval. I was under the understanding that all of the Manitoba maples were deemed hazardous and therefore removed. And so if it was deemed hazardous, are you saying that staff does not have delegated authority in order to have them removed and just have a report to council? Because I'm seeing a list of all the trees to be removed and on the report stating to be removed. So are you saying they haven't been removed or they're going to be removed? I'm just trying, for the sake of time here, and I'm just trying to understand what we're actually trying to pass here tonight.
It's not a problem. Through you, Mr. Mayor, the only trees in question with regards to tonight's application are the cedar trees. The other trees were identified as hazardous trees, and staff have the delegated authority to deal with hazardous trees, regardless of where they are in town. But the cedar trees were part of a heritage application, and staff have not got delegated authority to deal with trees within a heritage district.
Thank you. That was the clarity I was looking for. It was not clear. There was a missing link, and that is what I was looking for. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the chart that's, it says 6 trees, but there's actually 9 diameters on there. There's 9 DBHs. So just to clarify that it is 6 trees.
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, it is 6 cedar trees. Yes, that's my understanding.
Councilor?
Thank you. So could that chart be fixed up, please?
Mr. Waters?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That's all,
Thanks.
Council?
So many details. That's, well, the only thing I'd like to say is the name of the family that did such a great job with the Heritage House near Hillary House. That's, well, Richard Gong is operating an insurance company out of there. And I remember that his mother, I believe, came to Heritage, and we were so impressed and so grateful that they were doing such a good job, and they certainly did. So I hope his business is successful, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Humphries, second time.
Thank you. If you, Mr. Mayor, just a quick added, just in terms of why the rush, the damaged dormers weren't totally noticed how bad it was till the windows were being replaced and removed. So the windows were removed. It's like, oh no, we've got a problem. So they had to try to protect the area before they could go forward. So just in case you're wondering, like it was during, that's why this is more of a rush. So hopefully not ever setting precedents. It was just a circumstance of replacing windows and seeing what was happening. So there was the urgency is because of that circumstance. So just to clarify, thanks.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Gallo, second time, and then Councilor Gardner, second.
Sorry, and I hate to do this, but you know, these things unfortunately came straight to council, so this is our opportunity to speak on it. Just in terms of the conversation about tree permit, page 105, the tree permit application, it says, if all trees are considered dead, dying, or hazardous by the parks manager, there's no fee, but a permit must still be obtained. Please circle one of the following below. And it looks like if we're charging all of that, those trees are not dying or hazardous. Otherwise, we wouldn't be charging, unless I'm reading that incorrectly.
Downey?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, are you referring to the cedar trees, Councillor Gallo?
I'm just referring to the tree permit application. That's part of the agenda.
So the tree permit application was for the cedar trees. And as I say, we do not have delegated authority to remove trees that are on a heritage property that may or may not be hazardous.
Counselor?
The fee.
The ones that are listed there with the fees are for the cedar. And those aren't.
That's correct. The fees are attached to the removal of the cedar trees, not to the removal of the Manitoba maples.
Counselor?
Okay, I don't see an amount of what they pay. It looks like it's just this 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7 trees, 8 or more. So they didn't pay anything to have them removed. Is that correct?
Mr. Downey?
Through my understanding, there will be a fee attached to the removal of the cedar trees, but not to the hazardous Manitoba maple. So the 8 trees you're referring to, I believe, are the cedar trees.
Six cedars.
It's unclear on the application. That's fine. I'll leave it.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Oh yeah, Councilor Gardner, second time, sorry.
Thank you. I just wanted to ask if the decorative dormer surrounds are worth saving.
My understanding is they were rotted.
They're rotten, so there's,
Yeah, but I'll let Mr. Waters answer if you'd like. Mr. Waters?
and well, only if they're original.
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, you're correct. If they were worth saving, they'd still be on the dwelling, but because they're in such bad condition,
Okay,
they had to be replaced. As
Thank
the
you.
pictures show you, the wood is rotten. It's in really bad shape.
thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. I'm just going to add just quickly that, this is the type of restoration that we like to see in town. I mean, we saw it, as Councilor Gardner pointed out, we saw it with the Horton House. They did a tremendous job, and there was a lot of people when this property was up for sale. There was a lot of people coming and sniffing around, looking at having conversations about removing it, and we took a strong stand saying that's never going to happen. And so we were happy that that this owner has picked up the property and that they're looking at restoring it back to its original glory. And ultimately, it'll be here for another 150 years for residents of this town to admire while they walk by it. And so that's the type of restoration and a heritage maintenance that we'd like to see happen in the town. So kudos to the property owner, and I'm looking forward to seeing it once it's done. Call the vote. Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Recorded vote for item 8.1 on this evening's agenda. Councilor Gallo, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councilor Kim?
Yes.
Councilor Thompson?
Yes.
Councilor Humphrey?
Yes.
Mayor Maracus?
Yes.
Councilor Gilliland?
Yes.
And Councilor Gardner?
Yes,
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Council, that passes. We're going to move to notices of motion. Well, motion, sorry, not notices of motion. Motions, 9.1. Councilor Gardner regarding Highway 413. And I know you want to put forward an amendment. We need, Mr. Clerk, we need 2/3.
To you, Mr. Mayor, not in this case. I think it's okay I think Councilor Gardner has made the rest of council aware she wishes to move alternate wording. And so the alternate wording is up. If there's a seconder, I think that this would be in order.
Okay, thank you. Just want to make sure. So Councilor Gardner, you're going to move that as is? That's with your changes in there.
I only see the original motion on my screen. Not the one that I would like to pass. And also, we referred your item to this.
Yeah, Mr. Clerk, so can we make sure that that's the revised version? And if we could put in there a clause to receive 6.8? Or to receive the memorandum from me?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand that is the revised motion. At least we thought it was. So But I-
Mr.
Yeah,
Clerk, there's another motion because with the memo, this was changed before the memo of Mayor Maracas was put on the agenda. But in the interim, the region, Mr. Mayor, if you could speak to your men, I believe the region voted against. No, I'm not going to speak for you. Could you please say what your memo says?
So, yes, so, I mean, I guess I'll speak to you. Mr. Clerk, I mean, we need to get something on the floor, but I mean, why don't we, while we're trying to figure this out, Counselor, how about we just receive can someone put a motion to receive 6.8? How about we do that? And at least I can speak to that part of it. Okay, moved by Counselor Gardner, seconded by Counselor Gilliland. Okay, so I'll speak to that while we figure out the revised version of your motion, Counselor. Yes, at the region, we discussed 413. There was a motion put forward to withdraw support for Highway 413, which was put forward by Mayor Pellegrini from King. That motion failed on a vote of 8 to 13. And then there was a motion to make an amendment to add that a federal impact assessment be requested by the region of York, and that we would like that to be done. That passed by the opposite. I think it was 13-7, and there was one person that was missing. So we've requested that federal impact assessment as a region, but the support for the highway is still there. That's it in a nutshell.
Oh, hold on a second then. So I'm sorry. I think I misunderstood what we were talking about. So the regional council is still supporting the highway?
They're supporting that, they're requesting and would like to see a federal impact assessment done before moving forward. But they didn't, we specifically, well, Mayor Pellegrini specifically put forward a motion to withdraw any support for the 413 in general. And that didn't pass, which is totally separate from the federal impact assessment. That was just because in previous renditions, regional council has supported the 413 in previous terms. And so therefore, the mayor wanted to withdraw that support. That didn't happen, but we went forward with supporting that a federal impact assessment be done.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm just trying to send the new motion. I just sent the new motion to Michael Durand. So maybe we just want to leave this and go on to the next motion until that new motion gets up.
Okay, so how about we
Table it?
vote on, no, we just vote on the receiving of 6.8. So we just get that out of the way and then we'll come back to your notice of motion. I'll go to the next one. So Mr. Clerk, can we just vote on receiving 6.8, which was moved by Councillor Gardner, seconded by Councillor Gilliland?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, yes, we can. Absolutely. So record vote for receiving correspondence item 6.8 tonight. Councillor Humphreys, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Kim?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
Councillor Gallo?
Yes.
Councillor Gilliland?
Yes.
Mayor Maracas?
Yes.
And Councillor Gardner?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And could I ask Mr. Mayor, Mr. Durand got my email just now?
Mr. Clerk, did you get that email?
To you, Mr. Mayor, I did get the email, but that is the motion we put up, Councillor. So
No. Okay, can we go back to this? There's something wrong here.
All right, Mr. Clerk, can you put it up on the screen?
yes.
No, I mean, no, can we just go back to the next motion for discussion and leave this for the moment?
Okay. I am going to move to 9.2 unless anyone has any objections, and we'll try to clear up 9.1. We're good? Okay, so 9.2, Councillor Gilliland, regarding climate loans. Councillor Gilliland, would you like to move it as is?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Would someone like to second that? Any seconders? Councillor Gallo, thank you. Councillor Gilliland, floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So over the last year, it's been pretty interesting having discussions with staff on how to integrate environmental awareness and climate change considerations on core projects of planning and design phases, as well as projects and long-term climate risks. So it's been pretty interesting. We tossed around some environmental matrix of sorts and other environmental impacts and how we can evaluate that. And with much research, we came to the conclusion that climate lens or approach or assessment seems to be the newly adopted measure to evaluate climate risk in other municipalities, other levels of government, such as Halton Hills, Kingston, and even the federal government. So I do believe that the town operations and council would really benefit from incorporating a climate lens approach. It helped us better understand the environmental impacts and achievements made by council decisions. And I've also left it pretty open for staff to investigate ways to achieve this, since it's not all projects are equal in its evaluation. Hence why the climate lens assessment approach. I'm proud that council has supported the community energy plan, corporate environmental action plan, the energy conservation demand plan. There's so many other green initiatives I know our town has been in support of, and this next step helps us take action with intention to make a difference. So in doing so, I proactively spoke to planning and engineering who support and confirm there's enough information available to easily proceed at this time, to reference the climate lens, and plenty of engineering operations and facilities projects that are part of master plans that would take into account climate change, environmental initiatives, and energy conservation measures. It was also recommended by staff that they could include these evaluations on reports as early as June 2021. So I was really happy to hear that. So I do ask my colleagues in support of this climate lens assessment to help us better understand the environmental impacts and achievements. I think it'll be a really great step forward in moving our climate dedications that our town has so fully embraced.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments, questions? Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. Appreciate Councillor Gilliland bringing forward the motion. From what I've read, I certainly, I support the approach of using a climate lens. However, there's been a fair bit of variation that I've seen in reading, and whether it be Infrastructure Ontario or some of the other municipalities, in terms of what their approach is. So I was hoping Councillor Gilliland could define what she means by the climate lens approach and when it would be applicable and when it wouldn't. So perhaps she can go into a little bit more detail about what that approach is that she's hoping staff will initiate.
Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. I'm going to stay in my lane here and defer to Mr. Waters, as each and every project is different and specific. There is no specific assessment or lens that I can provide. That would be something that staff would come back with to investigate ways. There is a toolkit out there on some federal websites to include for municipalities, but I'm going to defer to Mr. Waters.
That's fine. Since if you're going to just defer to staff, I mean, if we're going to use the definition from Infrastructure Ontario, which is just for projects of a certain value and size and scope, then that's fine. I think that's where I was just getting some confusion, because I was concerned that it was going to be like we have in our current reports of financial implications, whereby, we're asking the question for every single project and, giving some thought to budget and how many projects we have. So if we're really only applying that sort of, limited scope approach that Infrastructure Ontario and some of the others use it, where we're really just looking at those big projects and what the impact is from a greenhouse gas emissions and how to mitigate that and so forth, that's great. However, as a suggestion, I would think that, perhaps everybody around the table might appreciate a report from staff just to be able to define what that climate lens approach really is and how it's applied and what it's applicable and not. Because to be honest with you, it took a fair bit of reading for myself just to get sort of a sense of how Victoria uses it versus Kingston or the province or PEI. And so I'm still not completely sure how staff really want to do it. And so, if you're open to it, I'd love to see a report just come back from staff. I support the idea of applying it. I would just like to see some parameters around it so I better understand where it's applicable and where it's not applicable. And that's my suggestion.
Can I respond to that, Mr. Chair or Mr. Mayor?
I didn't think it, Gardner response. Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, if I may, Councillor Thompson, I agree with what you're saying. I had some pretty lengthy conversations with staff about what the climate lens meant and what the assessment would encompass. There was some language going back and forth as far as the investigate ways, so staff would come back with a report, because there is a lot of defining of what that looks like. And we found that by asking for them to come back with how that matrix of sorts would look like, it was the best way to direct staff to come back with what was appropriate. So I do agree it does, the definition of it can vary from municipality to municipality, and that's an understanding through discussions with staff based on how I've worded my motion today, if that makes sense. But I appreciate you reading all up on it, because there is a lot of depth to what the climate lens approach is.
Thank you. Councillor Kim?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm in support of anything that will help the environment, impact climate change in a positive direction. And I applaud Councillor Gilland for tabling this motion. My comment is similar to, in the same vein as Councillor Thompson. I just want to make sure that there's no duplication and staff have the tools to make Councillor Gilland's motion happen. I mean, just based on the phrase climate lens, I can gather what it is referring, but from an operational perspective, it's pretty high level, and I'd like more clarity as to what the end objective looks like. Like my intuition tells me that from a very simple perspective, we screen and evaluate town projects through the lens of what is best for the environment. And, this is very high level, and there are many criteria in how a town project or vendor, contractor, or an objective is achieved. And, we look at, is it pragmatic? Is it achievable? Is it cost prohibitive? We like to, so I'd like to gain more clarity as to what that climate lens looks like as well. I also researched the places that Councillor Gilland mentioned in our motion. And in Kingston, in their climate lens initiative, they created a climate leadership division. They developed a community climate change fund, which means there's a budget matter to attend to. They created a net zero new build policy, and they also created a climate leadership plan. I don't know exactly what all that entails. I have an idea. And so I'd like to know whether, is that type of model going to be used here in Aurora? And I think Kingston and Halton Hills are, an upper tier municipality as well. And I'm not sure whether they have more resources than what we might be capable of. Now, I'm all for creating local solutions. I mean, that'll benefit the community and inspiring others to do the same. And, we always want Aurora to be the leader. And again, I thank Councillor Gilland for, putting this out there. When you look at other upper tier municipalities that have applied climate lens approach, they talk about implementing the approach into their regional official plan, talks about the complete communities approach, housing intensification targets, land use policies, building policies, parking, bike lanes, and complete streets, greening of our fleet. I mean, these are verbiage and reports that, ring a bell to us, because I think we've gone through most or all of these processes. So, we have discussed several, environmental related policies this term. And in the past few years, we've implemented various programs and policies, and there are a couple that are pending. And so I'm just wondering whether, what this climate lens is, whether does it need for current pending reports that council is anticipating, like the community energy plan, the green building plan, are those necessary pillars of information that we need before we can go on to this next step? So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Waters, or whoever on staff can answer that, are we equipped with information and pillars to go ahead with this, or is it best that we should wait on some of the outstanding environmental reports that are still pending?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it really depends on how we define what a climate lens is and whether we have sufficient information now to focus the lens, so to speak. Includes the,
Councillor,
My understanding it is to relate just to all town operations. It may and will not apply to all reports, but more to capital projects, more town initiatives at this point in time. That's my understanding, sir.
Councillor?
Great, thank you. And through you to Councillor Gilliland, I mean, in the second clause, you mentioned, to have staff to include climate lens in all GC and council reports. Immediately, something came to mind, and I just wanted to see whether what I'm thinking is what you had in mind. So can you clarify what you meant by the second clause?
Councillor?
Thank you. Yeah, that was a recommendation by staff that was something that could be achieved. It's certainly not necessarily that we need to include tonight. My primary goal is the first clause. As when speaking with staff, it was confirmed with engineering that with Ms. Mihail had voluntarily had suggested that there was plenty of items that could be brought forward with a climate lens approach. But from what I'm hearing, my colleagues want to better understand what that would look like. And I understand that. And I think this is the process that I'm trying to put them through. I know they're in support of climate lens. Again, we had talked at great length as to the best way to find that assessment or approach. And this was just a very open way to allow them to investigate what that would look like and where it would be applicable. So if it's not something that's applicable in June, then it's just not something that would apply. But if my colleagues felt comfortable just to remove the second clause, I would be happy with that too. My ultimate goal is just to get staff to come back with a report to investigate ways, and then that way we can fully understand what we're asking them to do, the kinds of things that they're going to be reporting on, and giving us that information. That way it gives us a better understanding to make those decisions on the environmental impacts and the achievements we're trying to make through that.
Councillor Ken?
Great, thank you, Councillor Gilliland. That answers my question. I mean, what I was thinking was that kind of reminded me of, a few years ago when we asked staff to put in a communications level, where we had levels of engagement for residents in terms of inform, consult, partner, and if we can have something, for climate or environment where each project or each thing that comes to council has a certain engagement or environmental score that we can kind of reference. That's for some reason that's what kind of came to mind. It'd be great if that if there wasn't kind of a KPI that could kind of help us with all the things that we move forward in council. But thank you, Councillor Gilliland, for tabling this. Certainly, I think like everyone else probably around the table, we want to set staff up to succeed. And so I just want to make sure that we have the resources, they understand what's being asked, and certainly the definition of climate lens and what we can do or what staff can do would be helpful. So thank you.
Right on time, Councillor. Councillor Gallo?
Thank you. I'll be a little quicker than my colleagues.
Thanks.
I think we're all on the same page that, including Councillor Gilliland, that we need a report back to council, and because we're jumping from that staff investigate ways to include climate lens approach in the town's operations, which is great. I think everyone's okay with that. We're jumping to implementing it in the second clause, and I think there's something missing in between there, where staff reports back to us to define the climate lens, and I'm sure they already have it, but I think we're all in agreement on that. That to me would be the next step, in order to define that, see what it looks like, have a discussion about it, and then move to that second clause in terms of implementing it on our GC reports. So I'd be in favor of it, going and adding, that a report to council, GC, and then hopefully implement the second clause.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gilliland, before I go to Councillor Gardner, I mean, everyone's been saying it, so I'll just ask you if you want to make an amendment, remove clause number 2 and add a new clause that reads that be it further resolved that staff report back to a future GC.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I may, for staff, would it be feasible to get that report back by May?
Mr. Waters?
Definitely, through you, Mr. Mayor, definitely not the first cycle, perhaps the second cycle in May. It really depends on the level of information that's out there and our ability to sort of put it together and come up with an approach for council to consider. So I would say second meeting in May is a possibility. If we don't meet that deadline, then we would go to June.
Just say June and then make it so you have a fulsome report and come back.
So
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Councillor, you're fine with making that amendment? Okay, would someone like to second that? Councillor Gallo? She's going to remove, Councillor's going to remove it. I'm just, no one else had their hand, and I figured you made the suggestion, so that's why I went right to you. So Councillor Gallo will second that. Do we need to put that up on the screen? Or can we wait till after we vote on the amendment and then go back to the main one? We good? So we know what the amendment is, to report back, and we're removing the second clause. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So there's the amendment.
Perfect.
The second clause is being amended to that. Okay, be it further resolved that staff report back to general committee in June regarding their findings. Okay,
Perfect.
I'm assuming there's no comments on the amendment, so I'll call the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Record vote for the amendment to motion 9.2. Councillor Gartner, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Kim?
Yes.
Councillor Humphreys?
Yes.
Mayor Maracus?
Yes.
Councillor Gilliland?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
And Councillor Gallo.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Back to the main motion as amended, and I got Councillor Gartner. Councillor Gartner?
No, I'm fine.
You're fine now? Okay.
Thanks. My hand's
Okay.
still up? Sorry.
Your hand was still up, that's why I asked.
Apologies.
It's all right. Councillor Thompson, second time.
Thank you. And the only other comment I had is, the motion actually asked for it to be essentially applied to town operations. So it's very broad. And so not so much to Mr. Waters, but really, to all the directors. I think that all of them should, weigh in on that report, because obviously it's going to have an impact on Mr. Downey and his department, Ms. McDougall and her department, Mrs. Wainwright Van Kessel in the budget process. So I think it should be a collective conversation amongst ELT and Mr. Nader Osney about, any concerns or how it's going to be implemented through the organization. And so while, most of the time that I've read it has been primarily related to planning and infrastructure and so forth, I just think it has ramifications throughout the organization. And so I would want to make sure that all departments have a chance to just weigh in on the approach to make sure that it's doable and that all the information is presented to us when it comes in June. That's it.
Mr. CEO, do you want to jump in on that one?
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, the whole ELT would be part of the agenda review process, so they would get an opportunity well before the report is published to weigh in on it.
Councilor? Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Call a vote.
Record vote for motion 9.2 in this evening's agenda, the main motion as amended. Mayor Maracus, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Humphreys?
Yes.
Councillor Gartner?
Yes.
Councillor Gilliland?
Yes.
Councillor Gallo?
Yes.
Councillor Kim?
Yes.
And Councillor Thompson.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. So, Council, we're going to go back to 9.1, which is Councillor Gardner's motion in regards to Highway 413. Can we get that up on the screen, Mr. Clerk? And there we go.
So,
Councilor Gardner?
yes, Mr. Mayor, this is my apologies. This is the motion that Councilor Gardner's just sent us. I believe it's the correct one now.
Thank you. Councilor Gardner, you want to move as is?
Yes, please. And I would like to say Mr. Durand was very
Oh,
kind.
Can I just get a seconder before I get you going? Councilor Gilliland, go ahead, Councilor Gardner.
Thank you. I'd like to say Mr. Durand was very kind to say that it was his mistake, but it was actually my mistake. So I apologize for the confusion. Although I think I could use a break. We're at 9 o'clock. But I think the motion is self-explanatory, and I think it's in keeping with what the region of York has passed with respect to the ecological assessment. So I think it's just supporting all of our concerns about the environmental issues that might be connected to the highway.
Is that all, Councilor?
Pardon?
Is that all?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure you were done there yet. Sorry. Actually, Councilor, before I go to Councilor Thompson, Councilor Gilliland, Councilor Kim, they have their hands up. I do think we need to change it's just wordsmithing. It's actually an impact assessment. That's what it's called.
An ecological impact assessment?
No, it's just impact assessment. It's a federal impact assessment. That's what
Then
they
how do
call
we
it.
know it's environmental?
Yeah, that's just what they call it. We went through this at the region. Everyone was calling it an environmental assessment. They said, no, it's called an impact assessment.
So then can we say an impact assessment to, I mean, I need the environmental word in there somewhere. I don't have the motion on the screen.
Coming up right now.
Okay, so I've got ecological assessment there. Okay,
If we send it to the federal government saying that, they'll say that we don't know what we're talking about.
okay. Requesting a federal assessment of,
Impact assessment of the
Of fed-
proposed route.
okay.
It's-
Mr. Mayor, if you're wrong, you're taking me out for dinner.
Okay, fair enough, but I can tell you that's.
And it better be a
That's what
nice one.
That's every motion that has been passed, whether it's in regards to the federal impact assessment, whether it's been Caledon, whether it's been Brampton, whether it's been Toronto, the region, Peel region, it's all been federal impact assessment. Every single
Thank you. It doesn't agree with the research that I did, but as I said, better be a really nice dinner.
one. Do I get one if I'm right?
Nope.
Oh,
This is not an equal opportunity motion.
okay. Councilor Thompson.
Thank you, Councilor Gardner, for bringing it forward. I support it. Just a minor request. I noted that we are copying and sending correspondence to a number of people. I didn't see our local MPPs, Christine Elliott or Michael Parsa, added to that list. I just think as a courtesy, we should. So perhaps as a friendly amendment, we could just add those two names.
Thank you. That was an oversight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So Councilor Gardner, you're fine with that, adding those two names?
Yes.
Councilor Gilliland, you're fine as the seconder, adding those two names? Thank you. To make that friendly amendment. Is that all, Councilor Thompson? Thank you. Councilor Gilliland.
Thank you. Through Mr. Mayor, just a few comments. I like the fact that you're bringing this forward. It does need to be brought to the forefront. An impact assessment or environmental assessment is definitely needed. And Councillor Thompson, you had mentioned the climate lens assessment with Infrastructure Canada. And yes, I agree. That's something that, I think that's something that we should mention.
Could you say that again?
The climate lens assessment. Infrastructure can introduce the climate lens assessment on projects that are over $10 million, and specifically for projects exactly like this. And I think that would be appropriate if Councillor Gardner would agree, if there was a friendly amendment suggesting after the impact assessment to say include a climate lens assessment.
I'm fine with that, Mr. Mayor.
You're fine with that?
So just to kind of like read a little bit on that to understand, the climate lens is an innovative policy approach that encourages public sector organizations to better assess climate impacts and hazards of their projects. This assessment consists of two components to identify carbon reduction opportunities and likely climate change hazards over the full project life cycle. An extensive GHG emissions inventory, the infrastructure asset, and the use of risk management approach to identifying climate risks. So that is generally kind of like the purpose of what that climate lens assessment is. It's something that's been done before. And if we want to send that strong message, at least as our council, to kind of support having that paper and that assessment, I think it would be an appropriate thing to add for this motion.
Clerk, did you get that?
To you, Mr. Mayor, yes, I believe so. It's just to end a climate lens assessment after the federal impact assessment.
Correct.
Sure. And
Is
Councilor
that
Gardner,
it?
you're fine with that? And I'm assuming Councilor Gilliland, who seconded, is fine with that. So Councilor Gardner, you're good?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, I think it looks good on us to do that. And, you know, they may or may not agree, but I think it shows that we're environmentally progressive.
That's fine. So you're good with that then? And yes or no?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk, can we just do a friendly amendment on that then?
To you, Mr. Mayor, yes, friendly amendment complete, and we have a motion on the screen.
All right. Councilor Gardner, you good with that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilor Gilliland, you're good with that? Yes, thank you. Councilor Gilliland, are you done or did you have more?
Not much more other than the fact I think that, you know, this is an important message to send to
Right.
the province and also the
That's
federal
right.
government as well, of where we stand and showing our support and where we want the work to be done to make sure that when and if this highway is constructed, it's done with the right intentions for our environment and our climate.
Thank you. Councilor Kim?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councilor Gardner, for tabling this. It's pretty important for us as a municipality and as part of York Region to, give our voice, or lend our voice to this potential project. And, I recall Highway 413 being brought up in the early 2000s in a place as part of the Places to Grow Act. And I think way back, like in 2012 or something, a panel came out and, they viewed that, essentially the original objective was to have an alternative way to get from east to west in the GTA. And this highway is, in the northern extremes of the GTA. And really the amount of time that it saved was 30 seconds. So in terms of this impact, investigation or report, it'll certainly hopefully highlight that. And certainly, if it does happen, it will encourage and instigate, more car dependent housing. So that's certainly a concern as well. And that will have a definite environmental impact. So thank you, Councilor Gardner, and I'll be voting in favor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Kim. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none. Councilor Gardner, I know you and I have had some conversations about this. I'm fully in support of this as I was at the region. I would have liked to have seen the region withdraw the support. Unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. I think this is an important step to ask for the federal impact assessment because quite frankly, the provincial environmental assessment is been streamlined. Process has been streamlined, and we're I got to be honest, we're a bit nervous that things are going to get missed from the provincial level because of that streamlining process. We've seen what's going to happen. We're going to deal with my motion coming up in regards to MZOs. We've seen what the the province has done in regards to making changes to zoning, making changes to Bill 108 through and making changes to LPAT and trying to streamline processes and cutting red tape. And we've seen what that has caused in certain circumstances. And so I think that's why this passed at regional council. And I think that's why it's passed right across the board. I mean, and we've seen Vaughan withdraw their support from a local level. And
Yeah.
I think it's vitally important for us to stand up with our local municipalities, our neighboring municipalities, and stand for what they believe in. While this does not directly cut through Aurora, our neighboring municipalities have stood up and said that we are opposed to this and we want a federal impact assessment. So I think that this is a good way for us to show our partnership with our neighboring municipalities and say we'll stand with you on an important issue. And so I'm thankful that you brought this forward, and I'll be in favor. Any other comments or questions? I'll vote.
Record vote for item 9.1 on this evening's agenda. Councillor Thompson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Kim?
Yes.
Councillor Gilliland?
Yes.
Councillor Gardner?
Yes.
Mayor Marakis?
Yes.
Councillor Gala?
Yes.
And Councillor Humphreys.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Sorry. Council, and I forgot to ask on the last one, do we want to go for a break? Do we want to have our health break? Or do we
Yes.
go with it? Yes. Oh, I got a yes. I got another nod. Yes. So we're going to do our health break. 10 minutes. 9:23.
Okay. Ah.
Council, we are back. Next motion is mine, so I'm going to pass the chair to Councillor Kim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to put forward your motion.
Yeah, I'll move as is.
May I have a second? Can't see anybody, but,
Councillor Gallo put up his hand for air.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
okay, Councillor Gallo seconds it. Mr. Mayor, you want to start it off?
So, thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm going to be actually pretty brief. We've been going around on this for a long time. It's pretty straightforward. We were never consulted as a municipality in regards to this MZO being issued on the Bloomington lands. This is not about a long-term care facility. I would welcome a long-term care facility, and I think all our residents, and I think all of us sitting around this table would welcome a long-term care facility. Long-term care facility could have been built on the lands the way they were previously zoned before the MZO was issued. So it's not a question about allowing a long-term care facility. What this MZO that was issued does allow was it changed the zoning to an R5, which allowed for our highest dense single dwelling detached homes. This is also not about affordable housing, because these homes, we all know, will be built and they'll be sold at $1 million each. It's not about affordable housing. This would add at minimum 18 units per acre, an 800% increase from what if we did zone this area to a residential area under our OPA 34 only allows for 2 units per acre. So if this application came before us as an application in public planning and said that they wanted to increase the density to 18 units per acre, we would all say no and kick them out of our chamber. So I think we're all disappointed in the fact that this was issued without any consultation with us. And I think we need to send that message, which I have many times with the Premier, but I think we need to send it as a council. And I'm hoping that this is unanimous. So the next time I speak to the Premier, which is hopefully sometime this week or next week, I can tell him that our council unanimously said that we want this MZO to be repealed. We are not in support of it. We've never been in support of it. That's pretty much it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any comments or questions, please, to the motion? Councilor Gardner? You're on mute.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a great motion. And I thank you for it. And I had one myself ready to go to the clerk because I think it's important that we speak up about this. Not only for our municipality, but for other municipalities as well who've been negatively affected. So thank you.
Councilor Thompson?
Thank you. Yes, I support the motion as well. I think over the years, we've been fairly consistent as a council. We always want to be consulted when something's going on within our municipality, even if it's federal jurisdiction or provincial jurisdiction when it comes to cell towers, even though it falls under the Federal Telecommunication Act. Municipalities, not just ours, have always argued that they should be part of the consultation process. And as we've seen over the years, they amended that process to ensure that municipalities have an opportunity for feedback, even though the final say may rest with the federal authorities. No different with Canada Post and the mailboxes. When those came to Aurora, there was great concern because we weren't consulted in that either. And Aurora took a stance there as well. I believe at that time it was, I think, somebody named Councillor Maracas that might have led that one, but I digress. Anyways, be it Metrolinx, be it whoever, we always want to be consulted. And to me, that's the issue. If you're going to, do something within the town of Aurora, at a minimum, you need to consult with us. You need to inform us and have us as part of the process and not just move forward. As it was once said recently by Mayor Maracas, just because you can doesn't mean you should. And so I certainly do support this motion and would urge us all to send that message that in future, all issues need to be part of a process by which to consult with the municipality. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll go to Councillor Humphreys, then Councillor Gallo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Councillor Thompson said it all. Just want to thank Mayor Marakis for bringing this forward. If anything, it's absolutely consistent. And I do really appreciate that. I'm not going to repeat any further. Thank you, Councillor Thompson, for your statement. I am in complete agreement.
Councillor Gallo.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Chair, I support this, and I too, not to repeat, was disappointed that they didn't communicate with us, notwithstanding the fact that they didn't have to because it's their land. As I understand, it doesn't matter. They should have. You know, it would be nice to go through the proper process for us to have a thorough discussion on things that are being built in our community. And I didn't appreciate that. Notwithstanding, the idea is good in terms of long-term care. We all agree with that, but the process needs to be followed. I don't believe it was. And that for those reasons, I support this.
Thank you. And I'd be in support as well. You know, when the new regime came in, I was under the impression that we were having some positive dialogue. And so it did come as a surprise to myself, and I'm sure as well as others, when this, unilateral decision came down upon us. So I would certainly will be in support. Any other comments before I go back to the mayor for final comments? Councillor Gillan.
Thank you. Yeah, this has definitely been a pretty hot topic, back and forth, and I've seen some different letters and such. And I think what I'm hearing around the table with my colleagues as well is just kind of like that courtesy of reaching out and kind of saying, this is the intention of what we're going to do and this is why. And I think that we're kind of missing that piece. And it just kind of, it just feels like we were kind of left out of that equation. I understand the intentional long-term care beds. I understand that there is a tender out and nothing has been set in stone. And I did speak with our local MPPs just to kind of have a fulsome understanding as well. And they have spoken up to say that they are definitely willing to sit down and have conversations, which is very nice to hear. So I'm really glad to hear that those conversations will continue. This motion, I do understand it, and I do support the idea of our OPA and respecting that as well as, the density. As far as the affordable housing, I'm not so sure that would have changed anything, because if it was, as is, or how it was zoned, it'd probably be estate homes. So to that argument, I guess, some higher density would be a little bit, I don't like the term affordable housing, because that definition of affordable housing is very convoluted, but it definitely would open the market up to more people. Not to say that this is right, and how this was done. I do understand there's also an environmental assessment that will occur. So I'm definitely going to make sure and fight for that as well, because I think the overarching reason why the OPA had wanted to have lower density there was because of the environmental impact. So that is where I'm going to keep my eyes open on this. Moving forward.
Thank you. If there's no one else, I'll bring it back to Mayor Marakis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yeah, I'll just finish up by saying, Councillor Gallo, I fully support, and I even when I talked to the Premier, and I said to him, I understand that it's provincially owned lands, but and you've said it, I think we've all said it, that there's only one taxpayer. So residents of the town of Aurora own a piece of that land, so therefore we should have a say on what happens there. So absolutely. So I mean, but my door is always open. I've reached out to the minister many times. I will say that the Premier and I have sat down and talked about this many times. It's unfortunate that the minister hasn't reached out, but my phone is always on, and I've extended my hand many times for him to sit down and let's have a discussion and work on this and collaborate and discuss how we can move forward in a positive direction that works for all of us. I'm still hopeful that he will call us and he'll sit down. But we'll have to wait and see. But in the meantime, I think it's important that we send that strong message as a united front, saying that without any consultation, without any collaboration, that this MZO needs to be repeated immediately. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great. If there's no further questions, I'll call the vote. Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Recorded vote for item or motion 9.3 on this evening's agenda. Councillor Humphreys, how do you vote?
Yes.
Councillor Gallo?
Yes.
Councillor Gardner?
Yes.
Thank you. Councillor Kemp?
Yes.
Mayor Marakis?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
And Councillor Gilliland?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Oh, sorry, that was. Mr. Chair, that was for you to say.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'll pass the chair back to you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kemp. I appreciate that. Next up, we have motion from Councillor Humphreys, Arts Help. Councillor Humphreys, would you like to move as is?
I would like to. I hope I can get a seconder.
Someone like to second that? Councillor Gilliland, second. Councillor
Thank
Humphrey?
you. Thank you so much. Yes, so I think we all remember back in December, Arts Help presented to us, what they have in terms of what they're all about, and that they're a multimedia, multi-digital company. And in awareness of what we're doing with Library Square, that I believe there may be an opportunity to utilize their skills and their resources to help our vision for Library Square and the incredible local artists and local events, local art that we will be doing incredible displays with and work with. So I would really like to hear more about them, and I would love staff to investigate and see what if anything that they could participate in or be part of with the digital communication for our Library Square. I think I was really excited. I think a lot of us were very excited when they first came in. Sorry, little one's getting. So I just would love staff to take a little time to just come back with a report to see if they see a fit for this type of support, skill set, expertise, and go from there. So I hope that I get some support for this to happen. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Humphreys. Councillor Gilliland.
Thank you. Just a few comments. The Arts Help presentation was absolutely fantastic. I loved everything that it had to offer. I know Councillor Humphreys wanted to bring this forward and was very excited about it. I thought I was under the impression when the presentation came, it was something to be considered at the time when we were kind of, I guess, looking for this kind of contribution. And I did reach out to staff and had learned that they really hadn't had any dialogue or conversations with them directly. So I was kind of shocked by that. I didn't realize. So I do think it's a good opportunity for staff to actually, have a one-on-one with them to kind of see what they can offer. I know that we are currently working on an art policy of sorts, and that hasn't really come to fruition as of yet. And we don't really understand what direction is. So I guess you could say that this is really a proactive approach to kind of understand what's out there and what can be offered for Library Square as an initiative in respect to arts and digital media and such. So with the way the motion is written, I like that it's very broad in the sense that it's just asking staff to take a look at what they have to offer, report back to council to give us an overview of whether or not this would be a good fit. And if this is something that would fit within an art policy and wait for that time, then we wait for that time. But let's be proactive while we've got a great initiative that is willing and wanting to participate.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gallo?
Thank you. And I share the comments that it was a great presentation and looked like a very interesting organization. I'm just trying to wrap my head around understanding what we're trying to do here. My understanding from when they came to us that it was their interpretation that they would take on that role as supplying the public art segment of the budget and what we're going to do with Library Square. That was my impression. Maybe I was wrong. There was a lot of information about them and what they do, and online there's a lot of information about them. So I'm trying to understand. I have no problems if staff goes out and reaches them and gets more information and provides that. That's perfectly fine with me, and I'll support this. I'm trying to understand the bigger picture. If we're trying to find a multimedia, multi-digital company to provide some services to us, then we need to agree that we go out and we find companies that do that, and we follow the process and go to tender and do all of that. If this is a simple exercise to understand, to have staff connect with them and understand what they do in order to facilitate eventual implementation of a public art display, okay, they could be one of many that end up contributing. If that's the intent, then okay, let's move forward. And I don't really see the need for a council resolution to have them discuss unless the staff didn't want to have that dialogue, which I don't know why they wouldn't have wanted to have that dialogue. But if we're at this point because there was some kind of a need to bridge, then okay. To me, if this is part of a bigger picture that we figure out how we're going to address public art at Library Square, it's a small piece of it, and it can fit into a puzzle, but there has to be a bigger picture in terms of how we determine who ends up doing the public art and all of that. So I'll support this if it means bridging some communication gap between them and staff. But to me, it has to be part of a bigger picture and how we deal with public art. So,
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I agree with Councillor Gallo's comments. It was a very exciting presentation and proposal, and it did have to do with public art. So I'm not sure how these two things connect. And I hope that staff will speak to them and see how they can fit into that public art policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Thompson and Councillor Cameron.
I guess similar to some of the comments being raised, I just, I guess even for myself, I want to be clear what staff are coming back with. So I guess my assumption is that it would be Ms. McDougall and her team working with Arts Help, if that's correct. Perhaps Ms.
McDougall
could give us a sense of, what we could expect to get back a little bit.
Ms. McDougall?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I would anticipate from this direction, we would look to meet with them to achieve a little bit of a better understanding of a high level interpretation of what their objective would be, what they would see proposed here. With the parallel project going forward where we're working on developing the public art policy and yet has not been finalized with council, typically that follows through with a procurement process for public art, and there's a whole commissioning and a selection process and so on. So I want to be very sensitive to how far we go with the dialogue with Arts Help, as I wouldn't want to go down too far of a path if and then we're steering with a public procurement process. Because in the end, then it looks as though we are engaging and supporting one entity when others may have an interest. So I would see this as direction to get a high level, better understanding of what their proposal could entail, but not dig deep into detail.
Councillor?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Ken?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And along the same lines, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Ms. McDougall, I have no problems with staff communicating with Arts Help to get some more information. But we've had another similar discussion where we questioned why one entity was able to give some information, and it's always that gray line in terms of how one person might feel about one entity giving some information but not the complete package. And so my question is, why not have multiple people or entities provide information so that you don't have to enter into those kind of dubious discussions in terms of, we don't want to get too far into discussion, otherwise it gets into soul searching and other kind of procurement conflicts. Why not just start the procurement process now and just make it longer if it's just a matter of trying to find or obtain more information?
Ms. McDougall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. From a staffing perspective, I understand where you're coming from. That is a much more straightforward direction and proposal and neutral suggestion as far as other interests that are out there. That's partly why, and not partly, that is why the staff are trying to develop this policy and subsequently a procurement methodology to engage. So yes, we could issue a proposal here and now, but we don't have those parameters yet around how council wishes to guide public art and within the municipality. Therefore, my only other alternative here in engaging with Arts Help is they are a unique mode of communication and certainly a celebration of arts. And whether or not, and I guess what I would like to better understand from them is do they fit into a public art piece, or are they more of a technology piece that has a mode of communications? And so if I can at least engage and go that far, I'd be able to report back to council to communicate if that is a unique entity. It's not public art, it's more of a technological or communications measure, or if it does fall within public art, then to your point, Councillor Kim, it may be simpler to open up from a public art procurement. So at this point, we're at council's whim to decide on how we proceed from here. Happy to do what council's direction is.
Councillor?
Yeah, thank you. And I just want to make sure that whatever we decide, that we're unanimous in this discussion, because I would hate for us to vote in favor and then, a few months down the road, we have a procurement process and, should, Arts Help, win that procurement process. I don't want, people around the table having different thoughts on how things should have been done. So Ms. McDougall, if you're saying that the core objective and the only objective is to confirm whether this group is a pure visual arts entity by our kind of arts policy, or whether they're communication and they're new kind of virtual communication or internet type of entity, if that's what you're trying to accomplish, I'm fine with that, so long as we're unanimous around the table. So is there a way before you connect with them, or maybe before we leave council tonight, that we can agree on what the objective is going to be in your communication or investigation with Arts Help?
Ms. McDougall?
I would ask then, thank you, through Mr. Mayor, I would ask Councillor Humphreys to clarify what she believes her objective is. And I'm rereading her motion, and I to that point, I would like to have a little bit better understanding where her pursuit is here. So I am on the right path.
So, Councillor Humphreys, hearing what I'm hearing, if you added, from what I'm seeing, And the direction that Ms. McDougall would like, if you added, that's town staff meet, blah, 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 I think everything's okay. And then, yeah, maybe you add a second clause that says to invest or to find out if they fall within our arts policy procurement or whether they would fall into a, I don't know, an infrastructure.
Digital communication.
Digital.
Well, here,
Want to phrase
yeah,
that.
may I clarify, just through
Sure.
Mr. Mayor, my intention, public art policy wasn't really my intention with this group. It's coming up in discussion here. That's not, my intention was they're multimedia, a large experienced organization, and they promote art. And we, from what I understand, is we can provide the content, local artists, event-based event initiatives, and they take that and communicate it out in a powerful manner. And they have over, I think, 2.5 million artists globally. And it's the exposure that they will allow for an incredible, Library Square that we are building. And I just felt that the magnitude of this project and, where we want it to go, that we have an experienced multimedia digital communication powerhouse. That's what they do. They celebrate and they promote art. They don't create it. And I don't believe they create public art policies either. I think that's our job, and we can procure that through those types of, I just wanted, how I felt, and Councillor Gallo hit the nail on the head, was when we had that opportunity and they came to present, I thought staff would be allowed to speak to them, and they have not been. They will not do that because they need direction. If I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's what I heard, because I thought they were, quite exciting. And I felt that, again, the vision of Library Square is so huge and so unique. It's not something that our municipality has done, maybe others, but the way we see it, it's truly going to be stated, I want to say like a flagship almost in terms of what we're doing. So I was hoping that we could see if there's an opportunity to use their skill set, their resources, and we would feed into them our public art policies, our artists, our events, and is there a way that they manage it, manage the communication from a communication perspective. I could be way off here, but I wanted staff to have that engagement, that communication, to see if there's a fit for them. Now, if they come back and there's a procurement issue, absolutely, that we cannot, it's got to be fair and open. So that's all. I mean, I didn't realize that staff couldn't have the discussions to hear more from them after our event. I mean, I know that when we go to these trade shows, staff talks to all types of vendors and finds out what they do and what they have and gives them ideas, and maybe they can send out an RFP and everyone can reply in, but at least they've got an idea of what's out there. So I meant it very at a high level, just a little bit of discussion engagement. And is there a fit in the plan that's happening out there for our communication and marketing of our incredible events that are going to be hosted in Library Square? So that's where I was coming from. I'm hearing public arts. That wasn't anything. I don't want it to go. If it goes there, then yeah, this is a procurement issue and we can't go there. They can just apply and be part of that. That's to me, that's different stream, a different stream, a business line that they can apply for if that's what they want. But I don't believe that's their mode. I think as we provide the content and they communicate it out and market it in a very exciting way. So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think staff needs direction that they can talk to them.
Mr. Seo, I saw you pop on. Did you want to respond?
See, Mr. Mayor, if I might, yes, I hope the council can appreciate that. Yes, certainly we have conversations with groups, get ideas and to help us with bringing ideas to council or bringing clarity to a subject. The sensitivity in this one is the timing, right? We're in the midst of bringing out an arts policy, which has absolutely really nothing to do with Library Square in a sense. The arts policy was really something that's been talked about since before I even came to the town of Aurora, 5+ years ago, where there was a policy needed to guide in how the money that was being set aside from capital projects would be allocated and what the procedures would be and and where would art go and what was suitable art. And so it was very, very broad. And that was literally on the drawing board, recognizing that there's a big chunk of capital that comes from the Library Square project towards the art fund. And so between that and the other funds that are already in there, it was time to bring that policy forward and to get some clarity around how we're going to move forward from an arts perspective. That being said, there's lots of enthusiasm both for Library Square as a project and also for this this particular approach, Arts Help. We could see that from when they first presented to council. And so we're trying to juggle these two things. One is a very general, broad, how are we going to do this for now and forever? And the other is, oh, we got this Library Square, it's happening now. And there's a group here with a lot of enthusiasm to do some really neat things, particularly for the Library Square project. And so that's our pause in terms of sitting down too prematurely and have it look like this one thing at Library Square is to a larger degree than it should, shaping our arts policy overall about how we're going to do these things across the town. And so that's the sensitivity on the staff part. And that's why, on our own, we didn't want to get too engaged with one idea or down one path before we had a little more clarity around policy. That being said, in terms of the motions before us, I think what we're being asked to do is consider their ideas in the context of a policy that's coming. Does it fit? Maybe it doesn't even fit. Maybe it's not even part of the arts policy per se. And one of the other things that might emerge from the discussion is that perhaps Library Square will be separate from the policy anyway, just because of the sort of single purpose, the one, the fact that this is a very unique project. This is really the only kind of project that the town's going to see with this kind of scope and scale. That is, it's a place for arts. So I mean, it's not just about putting some art at a corner of a street corner or jazzing up the town. This is a place for art. And so perhaps it, in the end, it won't even fit very well in a more broad arts policy about how we're going to spend an arts reserve around town to supplement awareness and development of arts in our community. So I would think that we would look to finalize the policy in parallel with, the process that is proposed by Arts Help. And that'll help us as staff bring some clarity to the policy and also perhaps maybe give some direction to council on what they might want to do if they want to go down a path further with Arts Help, specifically with Library Square. At the end of the day, it's always separate. I mean, a policy is just that, it's a policy. And it's always possible for council to separate the arts policy from what they want to do in Library Square, again, given the size and scale of that project and the direct connection with art as a center in the community. So I think that's the kind of things that we would bring forward as a result of our conversations with them, combined with the work that is already being done to bring a policy to council. So hopefully that clarifies, and hopefully I've got it right in terms of what the expectation is from the motion.
Yeah, no, through Mr. Mayor, that's how I see it. I actually see it very separate, but I'm sure staff can determine that in their first discussions. And if it turns out that it could be a potential art policy participant, then the discussion stops. My vision was Library Square and what goes on in Library Square, and it's not an arts policy. It's an event center displaying art, performing arts, whatever, and that they are a digital communication vehicle to share and communicate out what's happening at Library Square. So to me, it's very different. Like Mr. Seo mentioned, the arts policy was supposed to be a percentage off every project put into a fund where we determine where do we want to place art, spend art. So that's a whole different thing to what's happening at Library Square and the events and how we communicate out what's going on in a very powerful blow your mind kind of way. That's what I was thinking. That's what I heard from them. That's what I've read up about them. That's all. And I thought they came to council and nothing happened afterwards. So I just thought, is there an opportunity to have that discussion from a digital communication vehicle? If there's discomfort here, we don't have to move forward. I truly just wanted it as a discussion for staff to feel that they could confidently have a discussion with Arts Help, see what they're all about. And if they feel that there is some sort of conflict, that it's too close to Arts policy, stop the discussion and they can,
Point of
wherever
order.
right? Oh, sorry.
Councillor Humphreys was responding to Councillor Kim's questions.
Yeah, that's true. I gotta be
It wasn't
quiet.
It wasn't another time to speak.
Actually, well, so Councillor,
I'm sorry.
I did count
Quiet.
I did count it as a second time speaking. So just.
I will stop.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so Councillor Gilliland, second time.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Nadarozny, for clearing that up. I was going to ask you some questions on that, and you've answered those questions. Because quite frankly, originally, I wasn't really sure what the intent of the motion was either, based on the fact whether or not staff was able to meet with them or not. And again, I was surprised that they hadn't met. And I looked at this as more of a communication piece or arm of communicating art, more so than the actual policy. But based on, I think what I heard is, does staff need the council to have to do a motion for you guys to have a meeting with them, or could you just not arbitrarily reach out to them and have a discussion as to whether or not it would meet a communication piece? Like, I'm just trying to understand, because there's a little bit of confusion there with that, because if it's not required, then by all means, see if it's something that fits on a communication level.
Mr. Seau?
To Mr. Mayor, I think in this situation, for the reasons I've explained, I think it is helpful for us to have that direction. This is specific to an application or a presentation that was made to council, where there is some enthusiasm on the part of council to follow up, as opposed to a call to everybody and everyone who has an idea now for Library Square, let's say. So I think the direction is that this is something that's come to the table that council would like us to sort of jump on it a little sooner rather than later, recognizing that there is an arts policy coming, and to be able to filter that presentation of those ideas into where we go forward, as opposed to some kind of a separate complete operation where we go out to the whole community and collect it at this stage. Not that we might do it late. We may very well do it later, but right now I think it's helpful for us for council to hone us in on the one interesting approach that Arts Help has offered in specific reference to Library Square.
Council?
Thank you. And I mean, I'm just going to say, I do think this is more of a unique situation of what Councillor Humphreys is asking. Council is involved in this decision to want to reach out and find out more information of whether or not this is something that we want to engage in on a communication level. And as Councillor Gallo said, bridging the gap of communication, I think is a really good analogy of what we're trying to do and achieve here. And whether or not this is something that fits, and I'm okay with that. If this motion is what it takes in order to initiate the dialogue, and council's will is to find out more information on that level, then that's something that we're agreeing to do. If a policy comes out of it and it doesn't have anything to do with one another, that's fine. As far as some of the answers I got from Mr. Nadarozny was, council could give direction on separate related items to Library Square. And so that's kind of what my takeaway was, in the sense that there is no real bucket for this right now. And so this is just initiating that first dialogue so we can understand where it fits.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Gallo, second time.
Thank you. And just listening in to everyone, including staff, I think to their defense, it was always my understanding, unless I completely misread their presentation, Arts Help's presentation, it was specific to the implementation of arts at Library Square. That's what they were presenting for. And I can sympathize with staff in terms of, and I don't want to backtrack here, but that if that's the case and we're in the middle of implementing a public arts policy, and if that presentation was geared towards that, then I get why maybe they wouldn't speak to them until we finish that policy and then have some discussions. This seems to be going in a different direction in terms of communication, perhaps in a different way of advertising, and if it means having a discussion with them under that pretext, okay, let's see what they can offer. If it's different, I don't know if it's any different than what they've already presented to us, but let's be clear, unless I was completely out of touch, their presentation when they came to us had to do with public arts and the $200,000 or so that we had budgeted for that type of thing. I specifically asked them when I had an interview with them if that's what they were, and it was. So I get if staff hasn't communicated to them specifically regarding that, as we are in the middle of developing a policy, it wouldn't make sense. And I agree with Councillor Kim. I wouldn't want to ruin their chances because we're having discussions and staff is having discussions, and perhaps we shouldn't. Let's give everybody a fair shake. If it's a super high level discussion with them to understand where they fit, if they've changed their perspective in terms of what they want to offer the town and it's not specific to public arts, okay? I don't know whether that's the case or not, but if we're talking about public arts and if they're having a discussion regarding our desire for public arts in that area, then I do not think we should be discussing with them until we complete our public arts policy and then open it up to everyone and anyone, even if it's somewhat unique and outside of that policy. It should be fair to everyone. Where a bit wishy-washy, but where I stand, I don't know if I need a report back to me, tell me where they fit in all of this. I think that discussion needs to take place, but I think we should really finalize our public arts policy. Again, if this is a discussion outside of that and for different reasons, and we have budgeted stuff that we in communications, then it's a completely different discussion. My understanding from when they delegated, it had to do with public arts. And if that's the case, then we should hold off until we do our work and finalize our policy. Let's see, Mr. Navarez.
Mr. Seo.
So just one point of clarification that Councillor Gallo raised that I think is worth sort of stating. So this is the whole challenge with our public arts policy. It was never intended that the money that's put aside as a result of a project for public art was necessarily spent on the project itself. The original notion behind the idea was that when capital is being spent in the community, that money would be set aside for art in the community and not necessarily tied to the site. So there's another disconnect. Like they could be proposing something that is far bigger than the money we've put aside for Library Square, or maybe it isn't. It doesn't really matter. But there could be, because this is a place of art, because this is a very unique thing that they're suggesting, there's probably some room for us to learn a little more about it and to understand it in the context of what we're also trying to do from an arts policy perspective, because we're going to have to bring that advice back to council. And council at some other point will decide how much they want to spend out of the art fund on art for Library Square. And it may or may not be related to this project. It may be that council decides they like this and they don't really think of it in the same sense that public art was thought of when this fund was created. And so it may be just another project. And that's kind of, I think, what we would be asked to be sort of sorting out at a preliminary stage. But to Councillor Gallo's point, but if they start to merge very quickly, then it's like, yeah, we should stop here because this really is going to conflict with the policy, or at least be governed by the policy, or should be. And so we should really just wait and see what council decides in some of the macro decisions about a policy. But I think we can have those conversations without crossing that line. And I'm also confident that we can stop, and say, no, that's not the scope of what we want to talk about here. If council wants us to proceed with those discussions with Arts Help.
Council?
Yeah, and I agree. I think we haven't decided how much, we haven't decided what, we haven't decided on policy. So as long as the discussions don't enter into that realm, then let's speak to them and see what can come out of it.
Thank you. Councillor Gardner, second time?
I don't think I've spoken yet. I don't think I've spoken yet, Mr. Mayor, but it doesn't matter. So this raises another point because the motion is more about communications. I mean, I thought that their presentation was very impressive, and I thought it had to do with public art. So everything Councillor Gallo and Mr. CAO just said is relevant. But if we don't have a communications policy, particular one for Library Square, and we have a communications department. So that's something that, we might want to look at. And I'm not sure who would do that and how it would be done. Mr. CEO, that's under your department, I believe. But we do have a communications department, so we need to use them. We need to, we're paying them, we need to use them. We need to see what they think as well, and any ideas that they might have. So it's kind of two completely different directions here. Anyway, a discussion is fine, but I think we also need to think about a communication policy and how we're going to use our communications department to develop that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Humphreys, did you want to? Oh, Councillor Kim. Sorry, go ahead. Second time.
Thank you. In reading the motion again, it seems that we're asking staff to investigate and determine the cultural and economic benefits of having a large multimedia, multi-digital company to, bring awareness to Library Square specifically. And, it's kind of vague with respect to, whether this involves public art specific to Library Square, or whether, when I see what this company might be, and if it is a multimedia communication entity, then certainly it's not limited to just Library Square. Maybe, we're having challenges getting the word out to residents in the traditional way, or through social media or email. We're always having challenges, regardless of the most modern way of communication is used that's out there. So, if we specify that staff is just investigating the company in terms of what it is, what its capacity and potentials are, not just for public art, but for, communication and multimedia and other usage, I'm fine with that, which means that maybe the verbiage needs to be changed somewhat. But if it's specifically for Library Square and it's kind of vague whether they might potentially be part of the tender in terms of, artwork or not, I'm not totally comfortable with that. And unless we have a unanimous vote, I'm not going to be in favor, because I don't want anybody coming out later on and stating that, there was misunderstanding or didn't follow proper process or procedure. So, I'm fine with investigating if it's investigation for the purpose of determining what its capacity is and what exactly it can do for any organization, then I'm fine with that. If it's specifically about, increasing awareness and growth of Library Square, I'm not comfortable with that. So, Councillor Humphreys, if that gives you some suggestions, that'd be great. I don't want to, give my input on and make amends on your motion, but that's how I feel. So if you want to go ahead with the vote as is, then I'm not sure if I can support it, but if we're just going to investigate it, like I said, and just to determine what kind of entity it is and what it can do for any municipality, I'm okay with that.
Councillor, can I just make a suggestion? Councillor Gardner, I do have you down as twice, so does the clerk. Just to
Oh,
let you know.
okay, thanks. Oh, you're right.
Councillor Humphreys, before I go back to you to finish up, just with the conversation going around the table and what Councillor Kim just suggested, Councillor Kim, what if we just removed everything after understand both cultural and economic benefits and town staff report back to council by June 2021? So basically remove everything after economic benefits and come back at town staff report back. Would that work to what you're trying to look at?
That's fine with me.
Okay, Councillor Humphreys, are you good with that? That's still, I think that's still achieves to what you're
Absolutely.
looking at doing.
Yeah, that's fine.
And
That's
it keeps
fine.
it very vague, and I think it allows our CAO, with what he's explained to us, to not go down any roads that are not warranted. So I
Yeah,
think
absolutely.
so who's seconding that? Councillor Gilliland, are you okay with that? Are you okay with that?
Yeah,
Removing that?
actually, it's a great amendment.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so Mr. Clerk, can you put that up for me? So basically just remove everything after benefits and start back up again at that town staff report back.
To you, Mr. Mayor, yes, no problem. Just one moment.
So we'll have that as a friendly amendment. So there we go. So now therefore be hereby resolved that town staff meet with Arts Help to understand both cultural and economic benefits, and that town staff report back to council by June 2021. Is that vague enough for everyone?
Much better.
Much better?
Yep.
Okay, we're good. Everyone's spoken twice except for Councillor Thompson. Councillor Thompson, did you want to speak again? No. Councillor Humphreys, did you want to wrap up?
Yeah, again, this is just a discussion, and staff will know when to cut that if there's anything that should not occur. It's just because they were here in December, they were exciting. We all loved what they had to say. So it's a discussion, and absolutely stop if it crosses any of those lines for sure.
Perfect. So I will call the vote.
Record a vote for the motion 9.4 on this evening's agenda. Councillor Kim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mayor Marakis?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson?
Yes.
Councillor Humphreys?
Yes.
Councillor Gilliland?
Yes.
Councillor Gardner?
Yes,
And Councillor Gallo.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Council will move to new business. Before I go around the room, I just wanted to make note that beginning tomorrow morning at 8:30 a.m., New York Region residents age 65 plus can book a COVID-19 vaccine appointment by visiting newyork.ca/COVID-19 vaccine. I also just wanted to give everyone an update as far as vaccinations in New York Region. A total number of 152,382 total number of vaccines have been administered in New York Region. As far as residents 80 plus, 78.7% of residents in New York Region 80 plus have been vaccinated with one dose. 75 to 79-year-olds, 64% New York Region have been administered one dose, and 70 to 74, 30.7% in New York Region have been administered one dose. I just thought I'd give you that update on our new business before we went around the room. So now we'll go around the room. Councillor Humphreys. New business.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Gilliland, new business.
No, I don't have any new business.
Thank you. Councillor Gallo, new business? No. Councillor Gardner, new business?
thank you, Mr. Mayor. March was a busy month and we missed mentioning some things. There was the Day to End Racism. There was the World Water Day. And also March was endometriosis month. And I'd just like to say a little bit about that. Endometriosis is a terrible disease that causes unimaginable
Point of
pain.
order, sorry.
Yeah.
But I got a point of order.
Yeah.
Councilor Gilliland?
Sorry, I'd love to hear all of what you're saying, but would this not be more appropriate in the PSA, or is this considered new business?
Unfortunately, you are right, but we do not have PSAs.
Yeah.
We don't
But
have,
you're absolutely right.
we don't have PSAs tonight?
No.
Okay. By all means, Wendy, please go ahead.
You know, people don't really know a lot about endometriosis. And I just want to say that it causes so much pain, and it really has a profound effect on quality of life and actually the ability to lead a productive life. So my daughter and I are on the path to share as much information as possible. That's it for that. So as probably a lot of you got feedback from residents, there were a lot of residents who saw the trees cut all along St. John Side Road, the Shining Hill property. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Waters, actually, I should have said a lot of very upset residents. Do we have an accounting of how many trees, the species and age that were removed, and what the compensation plan is?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that information would have been part of the vegetation management agreement and the supporting work that went into that agreement that Mr. Downey's group reviewed and approved. So I'm going to refer to Mr. Downey for insight on that question. Thank you.
Thank you. And possible monetary figures?
Mr. Downey?
Yes, correct.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry, but I don't have that information
Okay.
Available. I know we were somewhere around 750 trees being cut down, but I do not have the compensation figures available for you. But I can get those for you and I'll report back to council.
Thank you. And for the next GC would be great. Also, I think Mr. Waters, this is to you. So because of all of this commotion, I was looking at the aerial photo and the site plan, and it seems to me there's 2 ponds on the property, and it seems to me that there are going to be 3 or 4 residential lots created over the pond, the main pond, and the other pond near St. Anne's School is going to have part of a residential lot put on that. I don't remember anything about that. So am I correct?
Mr. Waters?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, those ponds, I believe, are man-made ponds, and they are being taken offline from the creek, which is part of the restoration work that's ongoing now as in the valley. So they will likely be removed and drained, and all that is part of approvals that are issued by the Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority.
Councilor?
I can get you some more details on that if you wish.
I mean, I've been doing this job for a long time, and I don't remember anything like that ever happening where you fill ponds, and hopefully the residents that are going to be living in those homes will know that. But yeah, I'd like to have as much information as possible. And in line with that big central pond that's going to be drained, do we have any idea what the wildlife is there? What kind of species are there? And I'm also asking this because we had a big outcry from residents about beavers. We have a problem with beavers that are whose habitat has been substantially decreased by development. So I'd like to have an idea, especially if there's any endangered species on that are, residents of that pond.
Mr. Waters or Mr. Sale, did you want to jump in? Because you popped your camera back on. So.
Yeah, sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to add to Mr. Waters' comments earlier. I know specifically because I was in a meeting on this subject with Lake Simcoe Conservation a while back, and both those ponds were made without the benefit of any approval or consultation without the Conservation Authority when the previous owner had the property. And it was their desire to return them to a stream state to create a proper fish habitat for brook and brook trout and things like that, which won't survive with the pond system the way it was set up. And so this was something that the Conservation Authority asked the developer to do as a condition of their approval, as well as the restoration work that's going on and the repairing of the banks and restoring sort of a bit of a green belt along the creek itself. So it was a very, very detailed conversation and a lot of work that went into this final plan. And the developer agreed to it on behalf of Lake Simcoe.
Council?
And return to a street, thank you. A return to a stream state. I'm glad Lake Simcoe knows about this. What does that mean, return to a stream state?
So through Mr. Mayor, to restore the original stream that was through there so that fish could spawn and travel up and down the creek when those ponds were introduced, that interrupts the ability of the fish to traverse through the whole stream system.
That sounds good. What about filling in that area is in kind of a depression. It water drains into that pond. So is there any thought what we're going to do about all the runoff from the houses?
There is, through Mr. Mayor, there is another storm water facility that's more to the east and south corner of the development.
Councilor?
And
that'll be made by the developer for those storm waters.
And that'll be sufficient to serve the whole development.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Kim, new business? Councilor Thompson, new business? Okay, we'll move to bylaws. Someone like to move the bylaws? Councilor Gallo, thank you. Councilor Humphreys, thank you. Any comments or questions on the bylaws? Mr. Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Record vote for the numerous bylaws on this evening's agenda. Councilor Gardner, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mayor Maracus?
Yes.
Councilor Kim?
Yes.
Councilor Gallo?
Yes.
Councilor Humphreys?
Yes.
Councilor Thompson?
Yes.
And Councilor Gilliland.
Yes.
Bylaws passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. And just before I ask for the confirming bylaw, actually, I'll ask for the confirming bylaw now. So confirming bylaw, someone like to move that? Councilor Kim, thank you. Councilor Gardner, seconded. Ms. Clerk?
Record vote for the confirming bylaw. Councilor Humphreys?
Yes.
Councilor Kim?
Yes.
Councilor Thompson?
Yes.
Councilor Gardner?
Yes.
Councilor Gallo?
Yes.
Councilor Gilliland?
Yes.
And Mayor Maracus.
Yes.
Confirming bylaw passes.
Thank you. And I know we all want to adjourn, but I just quickly wanted to say that I'm proud of this council